Our
This
new
way,
girl.
the mic's right up by my head, so
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for organizing this.
sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how many people we'll have, but
Yeah.
there's, let's see, someone else.
Have you heard from Thomas ever? Like, has he responded? Uh,
No, I don't think so.
I'm so curious what he went on to do.
This is kind of weird. Oh, let's. Yeah, okay. There's Garth. I was going
Hey, good
independent.
morning.
I knew you. I knew that you weren't gonna try and bomb. I didn't know independent organic services, but I thought, oh, it must be someone because. And then I should have realized by the name, that. Oh yeah, that's Garth.
That's fine. I'll actually see if I can change the name here. This is our business. I always log in through our business Zoom, so that's what it comes up as.
Yeah. There's Dorcas and Heidi. And
Hello.
there's Heidi.
Hey,
Hi, Heidi.
Hi.
So we got Dorcas coming in pretty soon.
Hi,
Hi,
Heidi.
Gary. I thought
Hey,
I
Dorcas.
better join before that because everybody seems to be dropping out like flies. Oh, why have I got
Yeah.
no picture? Wait, Give me a moment.
Yeah, you just
Why am I
need the
got-
video on
Here we go.
there.
Here we go. Yeah, I never turn it off. I don't know why it does that. Anyhow.
You
Oh,
know. Hi, Dorcas.
Hi.
Actually, I looked earlier today, or not. I only looked just now, and I saw that at 9 o'clock, I think, or no, it was like 8:45, that Neil had checked in,
oh,
which was kind of strange. I mean, knew he was going to try, but maybe he didn't get the, exactly when the. Hello?
Hello.
Maybe he was having
Oh,
trouble
I
figuring
think
out
I
the
did.
time zone.
Yeah, I actually somehow I got rid of my screen. I was kind of looking around my computer for the email, and I thought I lost you.
maybe he was having a time difference calculation.
It could have been. I think most people like. Do you have a smartphone? They just go to world clock and see what it is in California Pacific time.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's in Switzerland. So
Well,
I was gonna try and just maybe contact him and see if I don't know.
that'd be cool.
So Gary, I was wondering when I saw the notices about the position on campus and the assistant manager of the Upper Garden. I wondered if you were interested in that.
I was interested, but I'm kind of right at this point. I kind of just started a relationship that I think is going to be. I'm hoping is going to be more than just a relationship, and so so it's the best I've ever felt about someone.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah, so it seems like it's going pretty well. But anyway, I that's one reason, and then also I'm in my I'm working at USF, so I'm making more right now than I would for that job. I would be taking a cut in pay in about what is it? I forgot what. Maybe it's about a $8 an hour cut in pay.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I mean, I would love to work more, that's why I got into gardening, of
What are
course,
you-
is for the, growing organic produce. But, at this point, I'm kind of like, I'm going to retire in probably 5 to 6 years. And there's a possibility, there's rumors right now that I might be actually somehow amazingly made the head of the department. And so that would be like in 3 years. And if I could get my pay scale up to that point, then that would mean good for my Social Security,
Absolutely.
other than the actual,
Don't, but
yeah.
What is your
It's a
position there at USF?
what's that?
What are you doing at USF?
Oh, I'm
What do
just a gardener. I'm a
Oh.
gardener. Yep.
Oh,
So
don't say just.
yeah, right?
yeah, that's what I've always been doing for the most part. Even when I was working in construction REI, I was always trying to, find my way back to gardening and doing stuff volunteer, I've always been doing it. So
Yeah.
Could somebody, Oren sent out this thing to add to the information about the job, and I really liked it. And I don't know where it's gone. I cannot find it on any kind of certain. I wonder if somebody could forward it to me, if you still got
Yeah.
it.
yeah,
It's just an
Yeah.
amazing description. It was an amazing description of so many things to do with the whole thing. And what I really love, the requirement, the qualifications for the job. The first one is that you have to have been an apprentice.
yeah,
There is nowhere does it say you have to be a graduate of Planet Zog. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. It's fascinating. Of course, the person will be a graduate, but it doesn't ask for that. And I think that's quite interesting for a university post
there's Neil,
these days. Neil.
who we haven't seen.
Norman.
And also I invited Olivia too. So Olivia is actually here too.
Hey
Remember Olivia?
Whoa.
Hi,
Your work
Olivia.
is amazing. Oh my God, it's a Neil. Wow. I have to move you all.
I-
Excellent. Wow.
And
Heidi.
there's Norman and Tiana.
Hello. Hi, Heidi. Hi, everyone.
Kurt's in the room.
Kurt's in
How
the room.
exciting.
Woohoo.
There's Kurt.
Y'all,
All right, hey Kurt,
I'm gonna have to
there's
leave,
Kim.
so I just want to say
Okay.
that it doesn't look like I'm just scooting for no reason.
Okay, all
I'll
right.
just-
Good to see you, Heidi.
Are
And
you?
that-
Where's everybody?
That will probably happen for me too, Heidi, at some point. So, and everyone, I have to go. I love you and I won't interrupt. I'll just go off. So,
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for showing up, Olivia.
Yeah.
Appreciate you just touching base, and it's good to see.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
yeah, good to see all of you all. I'm going to stay for a while. So,
Okay, good. All right. Well,
She's seen enough already. She's getting out of here.
I wasn't sure, so
no, I'm not leaving just immediately, but yeah, I do have to go do some stuff at some
All
point.
right.
How long is this going for?
how long today is this going
Does it
for?
have- Yeah,
This it will. I mean, I've got to cut out. I know at 1. So other people might want to cut out earlier. I'm there's no obligation obviously, but I know I've got to go at 1. And I have it. The reason I set it for 1 is somewhat arbitrary because I have a men's group, and that's usually at the point where we're kind of like, okay, I'm done with it. So
We don't usually last quite that long anyhow.
no, I'm just I
no.
just made it arbitrary. You make it more than you actually think it's good. And actually Kevin and Sharuth are actually amazingly showing up. So
oh, wow, cool. And I saw you invited
Yeah,
Lauren and Martha Brown and Anne. Kevin and Sharuth, wow.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Come in, Kevin and Sharu.
Come in.
yeah, I think they're still getting their
Their video.
going.
Can you hear me?
Yes, but
Yeah, we can hear you.
Absolutely.
You didn't need to start your video though.
No, okay, let me see if I can do this. There's the prompt, start my video.
There you are.
All
Oh my
right.
gosh.
Boy, I see, so there's, is this true? Are there 6 of us on? Is that right?
No,
Yeah.
if you go up to the right hand where it says gallery, or I'm sorry,
Okay.
where it says view, and then click on that, and it'll say gallery view. If you just put it on gallery view, you can see everyone.
Well, there y'all are. Hi, everybody.
Hey,
Yeah.
Hey, Kevin.
I think there's 2 pages, like we.
Is
on
there?
my-
are there
On my
two-
screen
people.
anyway.
No, I've got it on gallery and there's still room for more.
I have 11 on my,
Oh.
yeah.
It probably depends on what kind of device, because I have an iPad mini here.
Oh, yeah.
I'm on iPad and I've got 11 people on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Kevin. Good to see you. It's Olivia.
Olivia, yeah, I recognize you now. It's been a couple of days.
Oh, David.
God, it's great to see all these familiar faces. Hi there, Heidi. Who else? I'm getting my wits about me about who all's on the call. So
So we got Diane, and we have Garth, and we have Heidi, and we have Dorcas, and we have Tiana and Norman, and we have Neil and Olivia and Kurt and Ken and you
Oh.
and David. You were the last one in, David, so that's why I said the
Yeah.
last.
I'm actually working today. I'm in the middle of a shift and I'm trying to stave off any IT fires while I have fun with you guys.
Well, Perry says she threatened the possibility of coming in on her phone, which I asked her to do if she could, but
Who?
Perry Butler.
Oh, Perry. Well, I thought she said she wasn't going to do it.
Yeah, she said she wasn't going to do it. Then she
Okay.
said she might be able to. I don't know. So we'll see what happens. But so does
It's
anyone
really weird,
wanna-
interesting seeing all these people that used to have really, really long hair who've got really, really short hair. I don't mean you, Olivia, darling.
You mean me?
I think I might be talking about Neil, but I won't mention it.
Or Kurt.
It's a fresh
I
cut.
remember some very long hair.
Oh,
It's
you
a very
cut.
fresh cut.
Oh, you got a haircut just for us?
Something like that.
Just say-
Yeah, 30 years and it went by and he thought maybe I should get a haircut.
And Garth too, huh? Short hair.
I just got a fresh cut. Yep, this is just cut it off because I thought we were going to cross the border, but then we ended up not going to Canada, so I got a haircut all for nothing.
So easy to wash your hair when it's short.
I know.
My wife's always like, God, it must be nice. And I'm like, cut your hair anytime you want. She's like, I like it long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'll start just to get things moving, and because I'm going to have to leave. My last year, the biggest news was that this fall I became a homeowner for the first time in my life.
Congratulations.
Oh.
Yay.
Yeah.
My mother in Texas died at the age of 105.
Whoa.
Yeah. And it was a mercy that she was able to pass peacefully. And so that the inheritance put me in the position to finally buy a place. And I got a single level townhome 2 blocks from the entrance to campus.
Oh,
So
great.
I'm very happy with that. And it has gardening space. In a
Yay.
in terrace, I have a 13-foot long high raised bed, and also space for half wine barrels and big pots. So I'm really looking forward to planting my spring garden. And also in this past year, I've been volunteering. You know, I volunteered at prisons and jails for years and haven't been able to get back into the jail since COVID. So I'm doing, it's something called Neighborhood Courts, which is a restorative justice-based pre-trial diversion program for misdemeanor offenders, which I'm just loving. It's so interesting and does such a great job of really healing harms and offering services to people who've made bad decisions, and has been a really happy adventure, which I'm really loving. So that's enough from me.
Yay.
It's
Yay,
fantastic.
wonderful. Thank you.
Great to see you, Heidi.
Thank you. You too, dear.
Yeah, yeah, it
And you're
is.
in your
Good to
new
see-
home,
Yeah,
right?
I gotta get down there and drop in on
And
you.
you
I'm
in
not
your
that
new
far
home?
away, all things considered.
I would love that. You know, you've got my email.
I
Heidi,
do.
are you still singing?
No, since the pandemic, that's
Yeah.
like, it's just one of those things that it took a while to just recognize that it's just gone, that's not happening. So it goes. I've been very lucky though, other than that, it's like, you know, there's some things that all of us have lost through the pandemic, and that was something that I lost.
Yeah.
So Heidi, are you in Texas?
No, I'm in Santa Cruz.
it's Santa Cruz.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think David confused me. So
Maybe
Yeah.
I'm confused. You,
Her
you
mother's
said
her mother
She
was in
got-
Texas.
you bought something in Santa Cruz, but it was the death in Texas that made that possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I still would love to drop in on you, but I am farther away. I'm in Texas.
I
Yeah.
thought you on business or with visiting.
Well, so I have a son at Berkeley, and then another son who's going off to college. And if he ends up out in California, we'll be going to California even more. It's just hard to coordinate because California's big, and I know way too many people out there that I would love to drop in on everybody, but as long as I have more opportunities, at least more things are possible.
Yes.
Well, can we hear from some of the folks who haven't been here either at all or haven't been to a reunion at all? Like Neil and Tiana and Norman.
Yep. Haven't been to a reunion at all. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can all hear you well.
So the format is just kind of updates on life. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, well, basically, it's been a sweet thing, of course. With some of you, I get to learn something about you on Facebook, and that's been kind of sweet. Little update: it's 7 o'clock at night for me. I'm living at the moment. I'm living in Switzerland, although I'm possibly shifting to Mallorca, Spain, which is just a kind of a possible shift. I just got back from Mallorca yesterday. I was in Mallorca for the past month, and yeah, I actually, after the farm, real catch up, after the farm, I did 15 years of straight up farming, making all my money from farming. Garth, I connected with Garth in Ithaca. I was in Ithaca, New York. I had a farm, I had a family. I have two kids. They're all grown. My daughter is pregnant right now and going to be having a baby in June. So I'm in this process of deciding how much do I kind of keep living in Europe. I've been living in Europe for the past 10 years off and on. I was living in Budapest for a while, and then I'm in Switzerland, and again I'm on my way to Spain, I think. I stopped farming when my relationship with the woman I was farming with, the mother of my children, crashed, and I went on, and I don't know who knows what, but I became a sex educator is what I became, and kind of doing a lot of kind of wild, erotic.
You've been kneeling out big time. I've been following it, man.
Yeah, and so I'm still doing that, but during COVID,
sun salutations and stuff out front of the tent every morning, and keep it going, man.
Yeah. Thanks, David. I know. I'm not a big Facebook person, but I put enough on, and someone like David is always so sweet to make some comments. So that's basically my gig, what I've been doing, and I'm still, yeah. I mean, there's not much more to say. I came here to Switzerland, and I'm in a relationship with a Swiss woman, and she has a house in the Italian-speaking part of Switzerland. So I actually planted grapes last year to kind of in this grape region, and I kind of feel like I was jumping back into gardening and farming. But somehow it doesn't work for me to be so enthusiastic about farming. That's a long story why, because she wants to be in Mallorca. So I'm kind of abandoning that, staying with the relationship. Long story there too. But yeah, just so that's kind of, there's so much to share, right? I feel like since we were together in '89, I've been through a few different lives for sure, and that's basically it. I farmed for a long time, kind of worked that out of my system in a way, and it was really an important experience for me. But at some point there was just something else that I needed for my soul, I would say, and so I kind of followed this other route of trying to understand the complexities and the richness of human sexuality and all that has led me to, and that led me to Europe, where I had in Budapest, I had a whole school around erotic stuff, and then again I shifted to Switzerland, and here I am. Still looking for. I saw this fantasy of retiring in my mind. I mean, there's no retiring from my life, but my idea of kind of slowing down would be to kind of go back to, kind of a garden, but yeah, it's just not my time, and it's okay. It's just okay. Once again, I wanted to, but it just didn't work for my relationship right now. So I'm kind of back on the move, and I'm going back to the States in March and doing some workshopy things, and I'll come back for April, and yeah. So
Hey, Neil, quick question on the so grandbaby, first one.
yes, super excited.
Where will the baby be?
My daughter's in Vermont. She's doing homesteading. She's a homesteader in Vermont.
I have an excellent connection in Vermont. Vermont's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yep. That's it. Super sweet to see you all.
Yeah.
Really, lifetimes ago, it feels like. So we were all so sweet and young, and now we're sweet and less young.
It's the spirit doesn't really age. It
That's
just
right.
kind of layers on. It's great. I think the last reunion was kind of, I think, just a trip for everybody, because you see everybody's faces changing, but in some ways, they're all the same too, and it's great. I think when you make a certain connection with people, there's something about that connection that just, like, when you reconnect, it's just always there. I mean,
super.
That's just cool. Yeah.
I like it. So that's me.
Norman and Tiana, come on.
He's the talker.
So you go first.
Okay.
Go, Professor.
Well, you probably know it. Norman and I kept in touch for years after the farm, and I kind of followed his progress as he got his PhD, and I was in different parts of the world, and somehow our two paths came back together in 97? Yeah, probably about 1997. We got together as a couple, which is just, I'm so thrilled to have a farm person in my life. It just means so much. And of course, farming's been a part of our story, or I'd say gardening. We've never had a big farm, but we've gardened everywhere we've been. But we got married in 2001, 3, terrible date, and in Bellingham, Washington, and we spent the last 20 years there. So we're really rooted there. It's a neat community, and of course, Kurt lives there too, and we so enjoyed knowing Kurt and his wife Katie, who's just a fabulous human being. So that's been a neat connection too for the farm, is having us both in the same place. Norman and I ran a business together. We still have it, but things have kind of changed in COVID. Small businesses are tough to keep going. It's a research business. It's anthropology style research for different companies and organizations. So we've been, I say, successful in keeping it running for 20 years. And last year we sort of felt like, I think we're ready for a change. Time passes, and we're kind of looking ahead and thinking, there's got to be some other challenges and fun things we can do. And we have a daughter who's 16 years old, and she was mysteriously kind of twiddling her thumbs in Bellingham going, is there anything else? Is there somewhere else to go in the world? And I thought, oh no, did we plant that seed, or is she just, cut from the same cloth? So she really wanted, even though she was entering her junior year, she wanted a new school, wanted a new community, wanted to start over. So we are now in Massachusetts, excuse me. We landed in Massachusetts. We're outside of Boston, and we had massive amounts of snow yesterday. So spent the morning digging out, and we're doing well. Norm, I'll let you take over from there. You can tell the story of work or whatever you want.
Yeah, so we're here in Boston. Our daughter Ellie is 16, so she's in 11th grade, and it's hard for me not to get emotional. Um, she's in a school here, a private school, and it's carrying on the tradition of Tiana's family of Native Americans who pursued education at boarding schools. And it's really, me and Tiana are working on a book about her grandfather and his brothers and sisters who were real pioneers in seeking education and bringing that education back to their people and across America, working on reservations. So we're working on a book on that, and we feel like our daughter's kind of following in that tradition, which we're very proud of. And I don't know, I related to Neil's, several lifetimes in the last 30 years. It's hard to pick out which, piece is significant. As Tiana said, I pursued my education in anthropology, and I went on to be a professor for a few years. I actually was out in New England in Maine. I taught at a small college called Bowdoin for a few years. And then I was brought back to Irvine, where I grew up, and I was a postdoctoral fellow at UC Irvine. And I got into the whole technology boom and bust, and decided to try to apply my anthropological background to, the modern world. And basically, Tiana and I created a business out of that, and as she mentioned, and have worked with organizations, nonprofits, government, organizations, profit businesses as well. And I'm currently working for a company in the tech health startup space. It's called Whoop. And we make a fitness band. It's kind of like maybe like a Fitbit, maybe the closest thing that and it helps people with their health. And I'm the lead researcher for that company.
Wow.
Let's see. Continued to stay interested in Jamaica, where I did my research, which was my sort of first love. Yeah, and we finally got a chance to take our daughter to Jamaica a couple of years ago, and that was a real dream come true. And we're closer now, but with COVID, like many of you, we're not traveling much. So hopefully in the near future.
Wow.
Thanks, you guys, for filling us in. That's a wonderful story. I love seeing you two together, and I love the building a family and just everything that you guys are doing. It kind of gives me goosebumps. And Neil, great to hear from you too. Yeah, this is great, Gary. This is I haven't really partaken of the efforts that you've done to. I think Kathy mentioned Gary, the glue, kind of the glue of the whole thing. You're so consistent. I love that about you, and other things too, Gary.
Yeah.
Gary's a very prolific human being of just across so many dimensions. It constantly surprises me, but you post a lot, so we get to follow it.
Yes.
Yeah, I have that tendency to maybe over post.
Not criticizing, but no, it's easy to follow. I mean, it's all nice stuff. So I mean, that's what the social media to me is best for.
Yeah.
Is some of that nice stuff. Well, it's good for a lot of things, but I think it's the safest, nicest part of it is just seeing what everyone's doing and staying up with people that are so scattered. And the fact that we can be that scattered across so many things, space, time, interests, and still connect in this way is cool. It's really neat.
Well, because Kevin and Sharuth are at least I think the main farmers here who are actually, other than Ken and Beta, who are actually farming. I'd like to, and we haven't heard from them for a while. I'd like to hear kind of, especially what's been going on in the past 2 to 3 years. There's a lot of stuff that isn't going down for you guys, I think. Not all of it positive.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Many lifetimes, Neil. That speaks volumes in and of itself. I mean, we've been, since we transplanted back to my home area in Lincoln, Nebraska, we've been here, you know, we moved back here largely because my folks were bedrock. And when my oldest son, Graydon, was born, if any of you all remember Graydon Livingston, well, he was the namesake of my eldest son, who's, did I say he's 28 now? But when he was first born, we decided to move back to bedrock, and that was my parents really. And so they are now living, we are all, I guess if you look at property lines, we're on a couple of different properties, but essentially we're on one, and collectively we're sitting on about 34 acres, and we've been here since we moved back in 1996. And we kind of carried on with the vision of starting a small diversified farm, and we did that, and we're still doing that. The goals.
Our dogs are loud, sorry.
We've got a whole menagerie of critters in the kitchen at the moment, but you probably hear the doves cuckooing in the background, and we've got about an 8-year-old female Rottweiler and about a 2-year-old working dog, a border collie named Ringo, who is just born to work.
Hyper.
So we started out with, you know, pursuing the horticultural end of things. We were vegetable farmers for quite a few years. I've actually passed on the torch to another young person named Ian Richmond, I guess 3 years ago now. I was getting a little overdone, overcooked, and had too many irons in the fire for too long. And I would say, in all fairness, it was starting to have some negative impacts in my life, and I needed to let some things go. And so being able to, it was tough. It was a really tough idea to let go of the farming altogether, since we poured so much of ourselves, you know, emotionally and, you know, in all energy levels, financially, everything was just poured into what was, when we purchased it, an old, dilapidated, diversified Midwestern farm, of which there are many relics kicking around, you know, old corn cribs and silos and hog houses and chicken coops and, you know, dairy parlors off the main wing, and you know, those kinds of things. They're dotted all over the Midwest, and most of them are shells. And so we purchased one of those, and I had this very, you know, dynamic idea of creating the new model for the Midwest, for the small scale diversified farm. And so that's what we set out to do. And we started with veg and cut flowers and herbs. We raised turkeys, we raised grass finished beef in small numbers. We currently raise a few hogs. We've got about, well, we were up to about 200 dairy goats. We're down to about 100 now. We built a cheese plant on our farm. Shruth is the cheese maker, and we still collectively, you know, manage this diversified farm. And I guess in some ways, you know, education and outreach and storytelling, that's part of my thing too. And when I left the farm and garden, a huge part of it is, you know, I wanted to, it was such a profound influence in my life that I really wanted to try to create a little something like that. I thought of it as a satellite of something like what occurred at the farm and garden. I never really, it was a full-time adventure plus just to farm for profit and stay in business. So the educational element has kind of been put on hold, but as time has passed, I've learned that we can maybe do it a little differently. And so I saw an opportunity to offer this young man, Ian, who was just about 2 years older than I was when we started this farm. He was looking to kind of bolster up his efforts. He was a large market gardener, but not in any particular acreage. And anyway, he's taken that over, and we're currently looking for somebody to maybe pass on the torch of the goat dairy as well, too. And I think that might be part of the next chapter in my life or our lives, is to look at how this farm, which is right on the outskirts of Lincoln, it's literally 12 minutes to downtown. We're the seat of government and large university here, and we're found constantly. We never have to put an ad in the paper for help. We have an infinite number of solicitations for farm tours. We've just in the last couple of years added an online store and an expanded CSA version. So we're up to about 250 CSA members now. And we call it our Flex Style Farm Share. And so we have a veg option. Well, all these things are available to any of our customers. So we have dairy. We buy Guernsey cow's milk from another small farm about 50 miles from here, from a third generation Guernsey cow dairy. And we raise a few hogs, so we've got some meat. We buy in some products from other farms that have things that we don't have. We call it our Farmer Friends line. And so we've got a pretty extensive offering, and we're full to capacity every year, which is kind of exciting. And we're just trying to figure out ways to take the workload out of it a little bit.
I'm glad you're not overachieving so much anymore, Kev. That's good to hear.
You gotta whittle things down.
Just to put my own life in perspective every time I hear what most of you guys are doing. And anyway.
What's your business called, Kevin?
It's called Shadowbrook Farm.
And Dutch Girl Creamery.
And Dutch Girl Creamery. So
right.
So is it Shatterbrook or Chatterbrook?
Shadow, SHADOW.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think that came up somewhere a while ago. That
Is it?
filtered through. That name's familiar, right? Some I must have.
There's a restaurant in Santa Cruz.
The Facebook page.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I saw that somewhere.
Well, Sharuth is really good at the social media end of things. I kind of avoid it like the plague personally, but I'm somewhat by default connected to it through Sharuth. I want to mention too, I've got two other kids. I've got Graydon, that's 28. My middle son, Tristan, is 20, he'll be 25 here shortly in another couple months. And he just recently announced that he and his fiance are getting married, and nothing like planning a year from April 15th, I think, something like, or April 18th. So they bought a house 3 miles west of us, and they're doing really well. And then my youngest son, Tucker, just turned 20 in December, and he's about 6'1" and weighs about 140 pounds. So they're all doing great.
It's so great to see y'all. I just love seeing your beautiful faces. Thanks for being on today.
Likewise.
Yeah, and I don't know, Kevin, if it's just the video or what, but I mean, other than the beard, maybe you literally look exactly the same. I mean, I would pick you out a mile away anyway.
Yeah, so good to see you all. It's so good to see you all. Yeah, you don't look like you've aged a bit.
Yeah.
You know, you can't do this without a few bumps and bruises along the way. Some of the things that I'm, working through or working with, you can't see, but I've got a shoulder where I can't raise my arm above about the shoulder level. I've got bone on bone, degenerative condition in the shoulder, and things like that.
A lot of mileage.
Yeah, that's for sure. Awesome.
So are you you're milking still like 120 goats?
We milked 150 last season. Yeah, right now they're dry. They're gonna have babies in about 2 weeks. Start.
So they must be a breed like Alpines or something that actually don't cycle all the time.
Exactly. We do have some Nubians. The Nubians are from Africa. Those African breeds tend to breed all year round more, but most of ours are Alpine in origin.
We kind of dabbled in off-season breeding or off-cycle breeding, but I would say fortunately we didn't have much luck with that. because there's an upside and a downside to having year-round milking. And,
Oh, yeah.
It's great to have a break.
Yeah.
yeah. And it's for us.
Yeah.
Last year was a big turn for us. I mentioned we're buying milk from this cow dairy now, and that's been really fun to see that evolve and see how two small farms can kind of work together. We collaborate with a bunch of farms, but this one in particular is special. And we just decided that we were not really haven't ever really gotten the traction with goat cheeses that we had hoped. And so it's been kind of an uphill battle. And so we finally decided, you know, why fight it? Let's give the folks what they want. And that's primarily cow's milk cheeses. And so we're lucky to have this great little, I think 15 or 18 head Guernsey herd just 40 or 50 miles away from us. And so that's been a game changer. So we literally sold 50 really good quality does last year and diminished our hay bill by about over a third. And you know, we're just trying to right size our operation for where we are today, because neither one of us want to quit. We just don't want to do it at the level that we've been doing it for all these years. It's just too much.
Yeah.
Amazing you've done it all these years. It's really incredible, admirable.
It hasn't always been pretty.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Didn't you have a flood there 3 years ago or something like that?
We had crazy weather.
In I know in Nebraska you did.
Yeah.
In Nebraska and in and around, there's been flooding all over the Midwest, but we're high and dry here. You know, heavy rains and you know, winds and those kinds of things. We don't miss that stuff, but I think I've only seen we do farm on the bottom ground. I've only seen it underwater
Twice.
Yeah,
I think
once a
2
little
times.
ways, and another year it was probably 4 or 5 acres underwater. But we have a creek that's on the south border of our property, and it actually is a tributary that goes into the city of Lincoln. And it came out of its banks a few years ago, and we had some, but nothing like the big rivers getting outside of their banks, the Platte and the Missouri. So.
We had straight line winds that took out 2 structures that we used to move for our goats and threw them onto 2 of our high tunnels.
Whoa.
So that was kind of crazy. It wasn't quite a tornado, but we've had tornadoes get within miles of us.
Wow.
It's
Definitely.
it's a little different than Santa Cruz.
Weather around here.
Yeah, sitting down in North Texas, we're always watching it swirling around, and you know, the really heavily populated areas have just been so lucky here. I mean, it hits around, but like the big populated areas have been spared over a lot of years. But yeah, it's only a matter of time, I suppose, as more extreme weather events happen in more years and more seasons and more places.
Great.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It's a fun new climate.
Yeah.
Keep those dice rolling.
Oof.
Who next?
How about you, Sharuth?
What about me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, he basically spoke on the subject. I think currently, yeah, just really quickly, but I feel like our farm in the next few years here is going to change a little bit more. We've been trying to encourage young farmers to come and do, you know, small parts of our operation. So we have an employee that just recently came back who worked with us, I don't know, like 13, 14 years ago when she was a young, just out of college person. And now she has 2 little children, and she and her husband moved back to our town of Lincoln. And she's taking on our egg production, for example. So
And cut flowers.
and cut flowers, yeah. So she did cut flowers with me back then, and now she's going to help manage the cut flower operation here. And then also is taking on all the chickens and the egg laying and washing of eggs and selling that through our CSA. So that's kind of fun. And now we are kind of looking for someone to do the same with the goats. If I can find a young person to either manage or take ownership of the goat operation so that I can focus on cheese. I think that's my goal. Yeah, it's kind of fun. It's fun to see how things evolve.
And it's sweet that you're mentoring young people to take over too.
Yeah, we definitely have the space, so. Nice.
I think that was just really a key thing for us and I think it's not new. I just looked at the itinerary for a little farm conference that's happening next weekend through the Nebraska Sustainable Ag Society, and it's it was one of the topics is farms in transition. And boy, where isn't that happening? What do you do if you don't have a family member that wants to carry on? You can look at a lifetime accumulation of efforts and inputs to be just basically folded in if you don't have somebody or some entity to take it on or to pass it on to. And I think that's just valuable irreplaceable things lost. And so that's really a large part of what I look at the next chunk of time being is what can we do? We're so accessible to the city and we're so well known in local markets that we have a lot to offer to anybody that comes to us. We rarely say no. When somebody approaches us, we rarely say no. And we're in a situation where we've got some housing to offer too. So we have a house that we raised 3 boys in, and the 3 boys are now gone. So, well, enough on us.
Let's hear about you.
Yeah. Who's next?
Well, I want to jump in quickly and say that California Farm Link, and I know there are other Farm Link programs around the country that connect, retiring or, farmers who want to transition out of so much with young farmers who want to come in. So I'll just say that. I don't need to be next, but that's an input. So if you ever want to be in touch about that, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Olivia.
Yeah. And I'm actually working with California. We did a 18-month training program on succession and estate planning for farmers and ranchers. And so we have 3 farming families that are transitioning in their next generation, and it's how you do it successfully. So I can share a lot about that with you if you want. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah,
That's
love to
great.
hear.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Next.
Mm-hmm.
Ken, how about you guys?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Well, I was gonna go, but Anna just had to answer the phone.
Well,
But
okay.
I can go, I guess. And pretty much said it all last time, but there's some people here that weren't there. But I have been married since 97, 96. And we've been doing what we call a micro farm. It's basically a market garden in our large backyard. We were in Genesee, Idaho, which is outside of Moscow, Idaho, for a while in a rural area, and we moved into Moscow in town. We're in a residential neighborhood 10 blocks from downtown Moscow, Idaho. But we got this house because it has a large backyard. It's about a ½ an acre, and it was all sunny, and somebody was gardening using raised beds before we bought it. So it was perfect. It has enough bedrooms. We have 2 children. One was born in 97, and the other we adopted in 2001 from China. And she is finishing up her bachelor's degree in Beloit, Wisconsin, and our son graduated from University of Utah in Salt Lake City, and he's has a degree in computer game design. So he's doing an internship right now. But we've been doing this market gardening we call living soil micro farms since about 2000 in Idaho, and we're still doing it, and we have slowly been scaling back. When we bought this house in town, we kept the other one and rented it out, and we kept growing things over there, but we finally sold that place. And yeah, we told someone we were scaling back, and then they said that, oh, you're retiring. And I said, no, we're hoping that it would not be all or nothing. We can just scale it to a smaller size. So that's the challenge. People think that you're not doing it anymore, because we sell to the Moscow food co-op, and there's a farmer's market here, which we stopped doing 2 years ago when the pandemic started. And even though they started the farmer's market up at full swing this year, we decided to continue doing the online version. There was something called Line that we use. The farmer's market actually managed it. We brought our produce to the city hall parking lot, and they gave it out to everybody. It was like an online farmer's market thing. And now we just have our own site, and it's really small scale. We do sell a lot to the local grocery store, the food co-op. But we also have people coming, a few CSAs. It's pretty informal, but we have their online site and people buy from that. And so it's enough. It's not our sole source of income. I've been doing software development, map, kind of like what Eric is doing, maps in the computer, and I have different ongoing clients. One is with the Forest Service, and we do a lot of wildfire modeling. So that's provides a lot of income. So I guess our motto is a secondary source of income, doing something that we really love to do. Ben and I both love it. She does it more than I do because I have the other thing going on, but it's, I think it's a model where you can, people who have very large backyards can grow food and sell it, and in a very small scale way, maybe support, provide food that way.
If you're scaling down from micro farming, do you have to call it nano farming now?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Maybe that'll help people understand you're not gone. You're just
Yeah, well, it's a micro farm now instead of micro farms.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good. Maybe we should change it. Yeah, I don't know.
I figured you're in software, so you would laugh at that anyway.
Oh, by the way, I was thinking about you, David, because we just got back from a vacation in South Texas. 3 weeks. In the last couple of years, we'd gone to Costa Rica and Mexico, but we didn't want to leave the country this year. But we thought we'd go somewhere as far south as possible just to get away and get some sun. We only have a cat, so it's
not
easy.
Big Bend National Park or anything like that.
No, around the Rio Grande Valley, McAllen.
That's pretty far down, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever
we
been
were on
that
the
far
border.
down.
We were looking across the banks on the other side. Yeah, and we saw fragments of a wall. We basically spent about 2 weeks down there and just bird watching, just trying to forget about everything else.
Yeah, I mean, Gulf Coast, Texas has got all kinds of bird watching going on. I haven't really been down there in forever. I've been to South Padre Island, which is, you know, many, many years ago, which is a getaway beach place, but otherwise Houston, Galveston, work. I haven't really been down to.
Where do you live in Houston? Or?
No, I live north of Dallas. I live in Plano.
Okay. Yeah, we were
I
in
live in
Houston.
extremely cookie cutter, poster child of ultimate urban sprawl and carbon footprints. You know, It's horrible. I mean, I have a great life here, but looking around, and sometimes it hits me with. I mean, I don't. Well, where I live is sort of an indicator of how I fear that our civilization can't survive. You know, I don't live in an area where I get a lot of hope about where we're headed. But anyway, I don't want to go off on.
Yeah,
it's affordable and it's nice, and it's probably almost 70 degrees outside today, and it's a late January day. I'm gonna go walk the dogs later this afternoon, and it's hard to complain when there's blizzards in other places and whatnot. And as long as we don't get a zero freeze where my pipes are gonna bust again, then we still live in an area where there's plumbing and exterior walls. So when it's zero, it's not good.
It got pretty cold in Texas.
I mean, in the grid
vortex came down.
Well, grid, we're a gung-ho independent grid, whatever, and that didn't hold up well because it's not designed for that. So.
Well, and you do have to live under the Texas government. I mean, that's pretty embarrassing.
I just drink a lot more. I mean, I have it good, but back when I would drive by corners with people waving flags, stop the steal, and I would just go, God, this is real. I can't believe it. I just have to ignore that. I have to maintain sanity. I vote, I give to good causes, and I don't spray crap on my yard and try to build up the soil and do small scale little things. Nothing compared to what most folks are doing. I'm the least agriculturally involved, but we do good. We landscape and grow a few things, and not that much food, but a little, and spend my dollars in try to get local organic growers and things like that, and do my part that way. But yeah, if I have to stop and not think about the bigger picture of what's going on, it doesn't make me feel good. You guys make me feel a lot better. A lot better.
Cool. Next.
Dorcas, where are you these days?
She's got the same little cupboard of things above her. I remember from last time.
Well, nothing. Yeah, for those who've been to the last few, nothing has changed, I think is the short answer. I almost saw Garth last summer or fall or whatever it was, August. He was about 3 hours away. Great. 3 hours away, Garth. Fuck that.
I know. I tried that. The email got stuck in the spam folder, and then I was on a canal boat. She was further south in Wales.
Well, it's just
next time.
Wales is a funny place. There's no direct north-south route, so you think the person isn't very far away, but actually, especially with public transport, it's like half a day. And if you don't have a whole day, then it's not even worth it even trying anyway. So communicated with Garth. I'm not on social media, so I'm totally crap in that sense. For those who weren't at, which is really Neil and Norman, and I don't know, have we seen Kevin on any of these? I've watched all the stuff that I've been sent, so I don't feel totally out of touch, but it's lovely to see the people that I haven't seen on other ones. I think most of you know that after Santa Cruz, I was up at Ocean Song and then Western Hills in Sonoma County, and then I came back to England in 2000. And I was in Oxfordshire, which was, my mother was in Cambridge, my sister was in Oxford, my brothers are in Japan and Rio, so my family's just, you know, all over the place anyhow. But I tried to be not that far from everybody. I got work in the Cotswolds, and but I've never really felt at home anywhere. And then I've been desperate for a few years to move to, I'm kind of on the Welsh border country, which is someone's kind of the edge of domestic kind of agriculture, which is all like orchards, you know, cider orchards and potatoes and sheep, and Welsh wilderness, kind of moorland and lots of wild hiking and stuff like that. And I needed to, you know, get somewhere where there's lots of space and big views, and it's really, really good. But I failed to buy anything. Anyway, I found a place to rent 2 years ago, and I started to move, and then we had the lockdown, and I had just moved enough crap that I could change my address with any authority that cared, so I couldn't be sent back to where I was living. My house was on the market and stuff, but I left, and a few months later, in 2020, yeah, in that year, eventually by the end of that year, I had sold the house and everything was here, and I'm still renting because I actually love it where I'm renting. I'm in sheltered accommodation at because the people where I live, you know, they're kind of, if I'm in a hole, you know, my car breaks down, they say, oh, take our car, you know. It's like, well, I couldn't live anywhere else here, you know. Oh, by the way, oh, well, you haven't got a car, oh, we're not using ours, you take ours, you know. It's like, life is not like that, you know. They're just really nice people. And it's a really, really cold building, uninsulated, everything. But it's just
Wales.
nice. It's well, I'm in Herefordshire, about it's like a mile, as the, you know, less than a mile as the crow flies into Wales, and it's kind of a weird zone where, given with COVID, that England and Wales have different rules all the time with COVID. And all my work is actually in Wales, as it happens. Technically, some of my work is further east, but it's still in Wales. It's a really weird, wiggly border, so it doesn't mean anything. I mean, as in, I'm crisscrossing all the time. And I have lots of, I do gardening work. Sorry, I should have said that. Since I was doing propagation and gardening where I was, at a big herb centre north of Banbury. I was main kind of propagator there, running polytunnels and big glass houses and stuff. And then I worked at Cliffscape Court, which is a grand garden next to Hidcote, which everybody's heard of. Nobody's heard of Cliffscape. And then I moved, fortunately, because all that work would have gone down the tubes that year. I wouldn't have had it. And so around here, I'm working for people who are really keen on their gardens, but they can't do it all, kind of people. And they could be ornamental or veg or whatever. So although I don't have my own, I really enjoy, I benefit a lot from what they're growing, put it like that. And they're really not, I just don't work for people I'm not comfortable with. Which makes people say, well, my landlord say that Dorcas, she's quite picky. And I think, yes, she's fucking picky. If I can't have coffee with them and not worry about what I don't want to worry about their politics, their anything. If I'm not comfortable with them, I am not going to work for them. So most people I work for, they're really creative, or they're musicians, or also they've got enough money to pay somebody to help, but they are the only job I didn't like, which I got kind of talked into, are people who have got more money than sense, and they're the wealthiest, and they're the ones who actually cut me off because they didn't want to spend the money. And I'm working for somebody who's 94, who's never spent money on their garden, but he can't do it all anymore, you know. But they see that they get something for their money, you know, and plus, if I like them, I spend them, the Welsh hours last longer, so they get much more time for the money, you know. But they're all people who are nice people, who I don't feel weird about what they do or how they make their money, or, you know, they're not arms dealers, they're not, it's weird. Well, you know, I just don't want people, I just think I better not say anything about that, or I don't want to, you know, I'm really picky, which of course means I'm even more downwardly mobile than I was, but never mind. I know that stuff will come along because I only work for people who are friends of somebody else, and something will pop up, you know, even if it is not a very good time of year. But I really love being here, and I just wanted to live somewhere where I would feel at home. And I love Kincton because it's really ordinary, but on the edge of amazing landscape. And so it's not like Hay-on-Wye with big book festival and lots of touristy frou-frou shops, and it's very down to earth, and it has a good bus service, which sounds mad, but one day, you know, I don't want to drive around all the time, and I can get a bus few miles west of here and walk home, you know, over amazing countryside, amazing landscape, moorland or whatever. And so I'm hoping that doesn't die, but you know, public transport in England is crap, but it is a place with buses and into Wales and whatever. So I'm not doing anything very exciting, but I'm a bit happier than I was. And yeah, I don't know what happens next, but it took me a long time to move away from where I was, and I have good friends there and stuff, but this is a good place to be. And I started, the really weird, I took up viola in September, which I played when I was about 13. I was really crap when I was 13, so nothing's changed, but I haven't played it for 40, 50 years. And I had this thing, I even brought it to California at one time on the plane, but it's so loud. And I lived in a terraced house when I was in Oxfordshire. You can't play, you know, you could hear everything through the walls, because I could hear my neighbours fighting all the time. So you don't want to play a loud instrument. You just feel a bit self-conscious. So here, nobody can hear. So I'm finally having lessons, having abandoned it for 45 years. And I'm still crap, sadly, but I'm hoping to be able to play. I'm hoping eventually, maybe within a year or so, to be able to play. There's like a local band and a local orchestra, and to be able to do stuff like that. You know, the viola is a joke instrument because it has a part that nobody notices, and that's the point, really. If you can't play or you miss a bit, nobody's going to notice, but you can enjoy doing it where you can. So that's my big project at the moment, is what I get up in the morning for. I mean, I get up at 6:30 so I can practice before I do anything in the day. And then by the time I've done that, it's light, thank goodness, because winter is not good for me. But so this has really helped this winter. How long it will last, I don't know, because my shoulder is buggered, and it's the shoulder that has to hold up the viola since December. So I'm kind of working on that, but otherwise all is fine. I have a big question. What does everybody think about the whole change at UCSC? The no apprenticeship anymore does my head in, really. I was really upset about all that. I know it's all new and all singing and all dancing, and the farm does all this stuff for students, but the whole thing is gone, hasn't it?
I hadn't heard.
I thought it was in flux and they were deciding. Did they make a final decision?
I think they've come to a new model.
Well, now there's going to be much shorter programs. It's not. There's no 1 year. There's no apprenticeship for 6 months.
Right.
Yes.
The whole model that we had is gone. Lots of new things, all singing, all dancing, and now it's called agroecology again.
That was good, but
yeah. Why did it take so long to get back to an easy name? Which didn't seem like an easy name when then, did it? But it's an easy name compared with Castus.
Yeah.
I think,
But yeah, I feel sad. Obviously, it had to happen, I guess. But I knew when that year out thing happened, and of course there was COVID, that was going to be the end of it, and it is the end of it.
Is Oren still there?
Yeah, Oren is still there.
Yeah.
But the post that's being advertised is for the woman who was doing all the presenting. She must be leaving because she was the manager of the Up Garden. I've forgotten her name. Because she was doing all those
that's not
presentations.
Stacey Philpott, right?
No, not Stacey. No, but there was a woman who was helping with all Oren's presentations on Zoom last year. Or maybe you didn't. I watched a lot of Oren on Zoom with really long hair last year, doing pruning workshops and stuff. It was really good. And but she must have left. I've forgotten her name, but there was somebody who's managing the Up Garden, and she must have gone because that's what the post is that's being advertised right now.
Right. Yeah.
Oren is it? Yeah. But
Oren
so it's it's not Oren's. Yeah, but it's kind of Oren's under Oren job, and which is why he's written that long email, which I've lost, which I would love to have again.
With no capitalizations.
So it's just all change.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's all change, and obviously it has been changed, but this is like a big,
It's different.
Nobody's going to get the opportunity now to do what we did. I think is
it's changed, but you're used to there's a cycle to it, right? The apprenticeship was a cycle, it was like seasons, and now suddenly it's like some sort of dramatic climate change. The seasons are gone. I don't know what that means, but yeah, that doesn't mean it's permanent, I suppose.
Oh, I
I
think
do
so.
like,
That's what I was thinking, was that it wasn't permanent, but maybe I'm incorrect. Is it permanent?
I think so. I don't think they'll
Yeah.
ever have a thing where you have 6 months through the summer and then people through the winter, and then being there's no handover between, there's not a second, there's nobody second years. The whole
They're not
concept-
going back
and
to.
they have lots of paid staff. There are lots of
Mhm.
paid staff now. There are people who run the
Right.
propagation, who run there are people who are actually paid to do jobs, whereas there were not before, was it? There was the farm manager, there was Orin, and there was agroecology, and now there's paid people who are paid full-time plus, and then there's the apprentices and students and so on, but it's a very different setup.
I think
So
they're
is
just.
Does no one come in from the outside now, or is it all through the university, like a university agroecology program that they do the work? I was a little unclear about that.
They're just incorporating a lot more of the university to be an integral part of both the, of all the information that's taught, as well as the organization of everything. So there's a lot more things being done by the agroecology department in a shorter period of time, and it just kind of pushed out the apprenticeship that we knew.
So there's lots of
Not
short
altogether.
courses. Lots of short
It's a
courses,
shortened. It's a
hands-on
very
stuff, but
shortened.
Yeah.
It's all like 3 months, say, or so
Yeah.
it's not apprenticeship at all.
It's not really something that I think people are going to look back at, that all the people who are a part of that are going to look back in 10 years and 20 years and say, oh, wasn't that fantastic?
Well, I mean, a residential community that takes over the management of a land, however coordinated and directed from above, I mean, that's a whole different experience that we were all in, kind of life-changing. And I mean, it certainly was for me. And I don't think it changed the trajectory of what I'm doing, the trajectory of where I'm at now. But the fact that I can do what I'm doing now, having had that as a background, I mean, it makes me a much better person. It's just, I look at the whole world differently, and I'm connected to so many different things differently. And yeah, I'm in IT. I sit in front of screens and I do tech support for software. It's non-agricultural as much as could possibly be, but that represents, my work life and not the rest of my life that's still kind of plugged into some stuff.
I don't know. I mean, I know they get the tent cabins, but I don't really know what happens about the food and all that stuff. I don't know if people still cook or any of that. That's not really that's not clear. I mean, I've watched all the videos. I've watched all this stuff, and I actually makes me. I mean, it seems like brilliant for the students on campus, because there's always food support for the students and food available for students in the cafe and all that. They're growing the farm and garden are producing a huge amount of stuff, which is just going straight into the campus. But I don't understand really actually how it works from the point of view of somebody doing a course. Are they being fed, or are they cooking, or is there any community sort of set up anymore? I suspect not, actually. And
I guess one big question is, will the people that go through that program be more or less likely than previous generations that did the apprenticeship to be major contributors in the field?
Well, I think a lot of the people who do the courses are already contributors I think the kind of people who are going to be doing the courses have already had to kind of prove themselves. I don't think, it's not like, I would never get on to anything in a million years. In the last few, the way the apprenticeship has gone, a lot of people, the apprenticeship news I would read, people were just super motivated. They'd already accomplished a huge amount before they ever went to the farm, which I certainly hadn't. My qualification was pretty much that I was foreign, I wouldn't have got in, I just thought, shit, I mean, you look at the people, you think, I would never have got in, I was just really lucky.
I think it's definitely changing, but I mean, I like the material that they put out in this last year with COVID. We use it with our own farm apprentice this year. It's been amazing to see. Yeah, this is Oren, and we're gonna show this video before we go and prune fruit trees, or before we, have Christoph doing the pruning. I mean, it's been great to have that information available with nice, well-edited YouTube videos with Oren or somebody else there talking about propagation, talking about pruning, whatever. I know that I agree. I mean, it's not going to have the same flavor, but at the same time, like everybody else, they're trying to make it more accessible to a broader, more diverse people of color population. And so let's face it, the ability to sit there for 6 months, while your student debts accumulate and everything else, that was a privilege that not everybody has. And so, and I agree, it's going to completely change the tenor of the training. However, there's a lot more residential training opportunities now. There's some really good apprenticeship programs, like in Oregon and Washington, we have like Rogue Farm Corps. I mean, there's some pretty good apprenticeship programs out there now, many of them that use the farm and garden model. So it's like, yeah, it changed like everything else with the pandemic. I think they're part of the reason for doing what they did was to make it more accessible. It'll be interesting. The daughter of a really good friend of my wife, Angela's, is doing that program this year. Like she is going to it. And this is a kid who grew up in San Francisco, never had any interest in agriculture. So it's going to be really interesting to talk to her and see, what her impressions of it. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited that they were able to keep going through COVID. And in the process, they have generated some really quality instructional material.
Yeah, no, I love the videos and Zoom. The negative of the pandemic. I've been able to watch stuff which I would, as a friend of the farm and garden, had no access to. Whereas all of a sudden it's available, on Zoom, and you could watch it, and that was great because all that stuff is now available to people who are not anywhere near Santa Cruz, whereas it wasn't before. That's wonderful. I love that.
I agree that the community experience is being lost.
Yeah.
But the other part is still there, at least.
I think if they keep the program alive in whatever form and it manages to persist and people are going to get that good instruction and get some kind of an experience, then that's great. I mean, to persist and be effective, even if it's different, it's still, quite valuable. So it's good to hear. Garth, we will want a full report, of course, after she's had more.
Yeah, it's interesting because I
Like
remember.
Diane wants to talk.
Yeah.
Diane.
I remember when we went from being a year-long apprenticeship program, which was what it was when I was there, and there was really very little application process to it being 6 months, and we were so concerned that so much was going to be lost. So it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds, and you don't get that community experience, and you may not get that same love of the land that you get from sleeping on.
We all had a year, so we did have a year most
Dodging skunks at night in the past.
It's a difficulty.
Yeah, I wanted to respond to the sense of loss, though. I think that I'm hearing from Dorcas, and because so many things seems like I just look back and I think every meaningful thing I did in my life that was, like the farm, art school, this like the Center for Bereaved Children in Sonoma, like they're all gone now. Like our farm experience, the farm's not gone at UC Santa Cruz, but that experience now has changed. The art school closed, the Center for Bereaved Children is gone. Like, and it's like a loss, it's like a kind of a death of this entity that was so meaningful and so impactful. And like we all were here, we are, we valued it so much. So I think it's really good just to acknowledge that and like feel the grief of it, because it's like it's emblematic of all this loss that we're all like we're steeped in it worldwide, right? And our society's changing so much, and climate change, like we're all looking at the loss of possibly the loss of humankind, or everything we've known and everything we could dream about on a certain level. And then within, I like to try to prevent myself from going the hole of total grief and despair. When I hear myself going, I'm like, oh, here's all this grief and loss. I'm really feeling it, Then I start seeing the visual in my mind and in the cracks that have appeared in the structures that we know, all the seeds that we've been planting with our lives and the people who came before us, the sunlight is coming through, and like all the work that's been poured in, been invisible, maybe you know, all the shit is gonna like fertilize it, and we're gonna we're gonna see new growth and new structures, and a lot of the work that everyone here is doing is contributing to that, and even in like small ways and totally unrelated to what we were there for, you know. I think we're all like contributing to what's being born, but sometimes you can't see it because we're, you know, we're like this big in this gigantic, you know, huge macrocosmic interlocking systems of systems, you know, and we're just in our little place. So we're like, ugh, you know, downward mobility. Yeah, I can relate.
You know, the initial reason for the change at the farm had nothing to do with the pandemic.
No,
It was
gonna be.
it was that year that we were there for the last reunion in 2019 or 2019 that all the stuff had gone down, negative stuff there. That
What was
really
that?
made
We never heard why it happened.
it was a combination of, from what I understand, I don't even know if Oren fully understands it, and he wasn't in the middle of it, but I mean, kind of. But it was basically, there were two different accusations of sexual assault.
Oh my God.
Okay, well that's all new. This is all news to me, Gary. And you
So and this sexual assault from you know, of apprentice on apprentice, and or it was like sexual assault or sexual. One was actual sexual assault, and I think the other was more like harassment, sexual harassment, and no one, including Ann Lindsay herself, felt some of this is bullshit, some of this is over, you know, it kind of, the accusations kind of fed on each other and created this toxic thing within the apprenticeship. And it was so bad that they just felt like, we got to just rework this whole thing. That's what was the first thing. Then of course,
well, that is amazing. Yeah,
you know,
So the
but
program,
that
as
thing
we
was
understood it, was an unfortunate consequence of generic human BS.
Yeah, so it was really the combination of the pandemic and that, but that was the initial thing that made them stop and say, oh, we're not going to do this next year. This was before the pandemic. They said,
well, I wish there'd been a bit more honesty about this, because I just think this is really weird. Well,
I think it was hard for them to be very honest about it, because there were actually, my understanding is there were sort of like charges and things, so you can't really talk. And then also the other undertone was the whole thing about, you know, having so many white people in charge of things, and there was a lot more diversity going on. So there was a lot more, I think, places of misunderstanding, miscommunication. And yeah, I think the whole thing was challenging, but that's why they took a year off to evaluate. And it was the perfect year to take off, because then COVID happened, and then the fires happened.
Yeah, no, the timing was phenomenal, wasn't it? Well, that's very interesting, because I thought this is a bit odd. I thought this, you know, somebody's really putting pressure on the program to, you know, actually the university's had enough. There's something has gone really wrong. And I didn't really have, I had no sense of what had triggered it, because I didn't know, there was just no explanation whatsoever. Yeah, you could see, well, maybe it's time, but to actually stop the thing completely, I mean, it would have stopped anyway, as it happens. That's the sad thing, isn't it? Because they couldn't have run it, and they could have had all that time without any of the publicity. You know, they could have, we can't run the program, there's COVID. But unfortunately, they'd already announced that it wasn't going to run, you know. So I was very, you know, you knew something had hit the fan. I just had no idea what.
I was on the board in Bellingham of a small farm called Cloud Mountain Farm, and they had an apprenticeship kind of based on the UC Santa Cruz model. And when they kind of looked at the hard finances, they discovered that, you know, when people are graduating from our program, they don't have land. and the barrier to getting land, which I think is something that we all had conversations with and that affected many of us, you know, being able to kind of live our dream going forward or not. You know, there's like this big gap, you know, you've learned all this stuff, you have all this enthusiasm, and then you don't know how to get into the business or the industry of farming. And so what they started doing, they were having problems actually getting recruits that wanted to come and spend that time. They're sort of like, well, we're going to get through with this and then we're not going to be able to do anything, you know, with it. So they decided to take the land that they have and give fewer people a chance to actually sort of launch their business on that land. Then they have a couple of years to get rolling, and then they're going to, and all the while they're kind of helping them. It's an incubator, so they're trying to help them connect to, you know, people who might be wanting to, you know, the succession plan out of their farm in the area. They're trying to sort of get these, you know, making a big investment in a small number, saying what we really need at the end of this, we need people that are going to actually farm, you know. So that was sort of their model going forward. And, you know, that still has its challenges, but, you know, I watched that kind of wondering, like, you know, is this something that's going to affect all these internships? Do we need to be looking more seriously at how do we get people, you know, into farming? Because there's just so many hurdles with land and cost.
And returning to the farm and garden, one of my understandings also was with the programs that they're doing, they're much more affordable for everyone. So it's not just you have to have the money to be able to be an apprentice and take off for that long. And, you know, as someone said earlier, handle the debts and all. They really wanted to make it more of something that would help everybody, regardless of what system they were in, class-wise or color-wise.
I'm glad
So how is it financed if you don't have the money to pay the course fees? How is it actually financed for those who don't have the money?
Oh, I think they were doing a lot of scholarships towards the end, and they had people of color scholarships. So I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I know there were a lot of different scholarships and grants and things for that. And having it online makes it so that it's easier for people to, you know, access it. But I mean, that whole year-long or 6-month-long apprenticeship where you're a community and you're really connected to the land is a very, and going in.
We're kind of losing you a little bit, at least I am.
Yeah,
I think
sorry.
Olivia,
Yeah, you broke up.
Yeah, I have an unstable internet. Sorry, I apologize. I was saying that getting that crash, you know, that it's very different getting a crash course in it than versus really being on the land.
I mean, I know that the 6 months we did was pretty amazing in and of itself, but then to stay over and see the other seasons.
Oh yeah.
You know, and the next cycle repeat for the following year was a whole nother dimension that was also amazing and sort of irreplaceable. I mean, but yeah, obviously fewer got to do that, but that was, that gave you that.
You're being taught by people who've been through the same system, whereas now everybody you're being taught by is actually an employee of the university. You're not going to be taught by, well, you may be, but it isn't the intention that the people you're with are your teachers or your mentors.
Right.
There's advantages in
you see all the staff. You know, there are all these different staff who are now paid. You know, and it was all about. I think, you know, it was also about people having to make all this money during the apprenticeship and not being paid. You know, there were lots of things I can see that, but you know, people didn't like having to make money while they were working and for nothing and blah blah blah. But now everybody you're dealing with at the university is basically a paid employee of the university, so they have obviously a lot of experience and they've been there for years and years, but it's not going to be from your peers in the same way, or people who've just been through the same system. So it's a very different approach, I think, which it doesn't mean there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it could be so much better, but it's just completely different. It's completely different. And you know, obviously I guess it has to change, and it has to be more available, not to, well, it was I'm afraid in our time, basically white middle class. And and I know that, but that seemed to change fairly quickly. Anyhow, that does seem to have changed from what I see, you know, the people that I've watched online or whatever. The outreach seemed to, but I guess the bottom line was they had to pay that money up front and be able to take time to do it.
Mhm.
And I think the approach is assuming that you can't take 6 months. And, I used my holiday pay. I had 2 years holiday pay, which paid my fee. It was magic. It's like there's all this money which I can never take the time out. So I accumulate all this holiday pay, and it's exactly what I need to go to Santa Cruz. $1,000, and the mind. But of course, that's $1,000, but it's been very much higher than that, hasn't it? And of course, that's nobody can afford that, can they? I can see. I can't remember what last time I read how many apprentices there had to be and how many thousands of dollars they had to do it. And I can see that was going to burn itself out, wasn't it? Because nobody was going to have the money to do it,
No.
except a certain kind of person who was probably not the kind of person the university wanted to attract. I don't know.
And as you said, Tiana, I mean, it's all well and good to talk about the program itself, but if the goal is to get more people into farming, which is not the only goal, of course, but it is a core and fundamental goal and need, there's still going to have to be other things done with it. The program itself can't really be responsible for anyway. I mean, it's a much bigger problem that we have to deal with as a society, and a lot of other organizations and institutions need to be involved.
I think if we could get a guaranteed minimum income going, then that could solve a lot of problems that we were talking about. And I'm glad at least that some of these like macro, the societal issues are being made more explicit. So, maybe eventually we can exit this flirtation with fascism in this country and actually make progress on some of those more
farms, less drones.
Yeah, because imagine if we had a guaranteed minimum income and somebody wanted to learn to be a farmer and invest their time, and then everyone would have some easement and uplift so that there would be more, opportunity. It might change the whole land accessibility structure too eventually. I don't know. I'm constantly wishing and advocating for that, because I was just talking to a friend last night on a whole different subject. We were imagining how it could shift some other systems,
And I know that Dorcas, I was thinking about where you live now. When we moved to Washington, I really got into cider apples. A master cider consultant came over to the agricultural extension in Washington and was teaching courses, and really the whole cider industry as we know it has taken off. He was kind of the Johnny Appleseed of that. His name's Peter Mitchell. Maybe you know who he is. But I kept looking into it. How would I get into cider and a cidery and growing? And there was even it turned out all the men that I met who were into it were retired engineers from Seattle who had gone into something about the technical aspect of squeezing the apples and all that really appealed to someone with a mechanical engineering mindset. One guy, which was it on? Which island was it when we went out? One of the islands off Orcas, Friday Harbor. He had 7 acres of European cider apples, organic, right on the coast, and he was wanting, like Kevin and Sharuth, he was wanting to transition out of it, but the property itself was show property. I mean, worth several millions of dollars. We went over and raided his orchard one time, and I think got 1,000 pounds of cider apples
in our minivan.
And I think Kurt, we got to that place where the micro starts to go into the next scale where it doesn't make sense to, where you have like 60 or 70 gallons of, cider, too big to what to do with it. But I couldn't figure out the economics of, what it would look like, to go into apple growing and having a small operation. I'm really, Ken and Betta, it's amazing to me that you figured out how to do that. It's really admirable. We grew a ton of food, over those 20 years. We had a backyard garden, I loved the pandemic in one sense, Diane, that I felt like kind of like, you know, forced into that guaranteed no wage situation, unguaranteed, but we just started, you know, growing food like crazy.
Some people buy guns, other people grow lettuce and kale.
You know, and we felt really connected in a way that time had not allowed, you know, for us to do that in years. And, you know, and we were in a little pocket where there were a lot of people growing food, and you know, it felt kind of, you could see the seeds of a different kind of a, you know, life and organization. But I think that, you know, the economic aspect, I think probably has hit all of us in different ways, of that macro of what, you know, what it takes to earn a living in this country. Something that we haven't reckoned with, you know, and, you know, the forces that be right now are very, you know, it's very intimidating from my point of view.
Yeah.
It's super interesting for me to be in Switzerland and watching. You know, the bottom line is that the population of Switzerland is smaller than New York City. So we're talking about a whole different economy. But I have neighbors here who basically have gorgeous farms, top equipment. They do all the land is like super maintained. And I count their cows. They have 40 cows. I mean, it's so government subsidized here. It's amazing. The way I say Switzerland said, we like our rural landscape, you know, we like our bucolic like atmosphere, and we're going to pay for that to be maintained. And somehow the farmers the farmers aren't just taking money and sitting back. They are doing beautiful jobs. Once again, you know, my neighbor has 40 cows. It's amazing to watch it. You know, in this, we know how it is in the States, but it can be possible. It might be, you know, you need to kind of like do what we all dream of breaking the U.S. up into, you know, different bioregions rather than this, like, you know, this huge thing. But it's where we put as a society, we put our money. That's for sure.
Neil, how have you been able to establish residency in Europe?
I got married.
Oh.
I'm fantasizing about moving to Spain or Portugal or somewhere and trying to figure that out. But that's sort of still ahead, you know, maybe. But I finally bought a house too. I don't know if Heidi's still here, last summer, and in Eureka. And there's just like hardly any ground. There's this lawn in the front that I need to kill and turn into garden space. But yeah, I hear about these villages in Spain that have become depopulated, and you know,
it's a big news. Yeah.
buy a whole village for the price of one California house or something. And I fantasize about gathering together all of these like amazing, talented people that I know with the diversity of skills, and like moving in and creating, you know, eco artist colony or something, you know.
Well, you know, if our civilization doesn't self-destruct, all those, you know, like Kevin's talking about, all these dotted old shells of farms and things, and I know going on all around the world, or certainly the developed world, what's left can decentralize itself into all these other places and just revive that whole regional small scale economy that, you know, with newer knowledge and techniques and tools and whatever, make it work again. I fear there's a disruption curve that we have to get through, and that's pretty scary, but it could happen.
Well, I think if you look at if and when the U.S. really finally begins to address climate change, you know, there's a huge role for agriculture to play, and that's where those subsidies come in. You know, whether it's grass-based, you know, rotational grazing, regenerative farming, and especially training. I mean, that's what we look at. So I'm involved in a bunch of things. I also like have a mini macro farm. We have like, you know, about 7 head of organic cows and a farrow to finish with 3 sows. But we do a lot of trainings. So I try and take on 1 or 2 apprentices every year. But I also, you know, for my main income stream, I consult with a lot of dairies and a lot of big big, huge, multi-thousand acre people that are trying to go organic. And, the more you can accumulate carbon with good agricultural practices, whether it's, intensive rotational grazing or cover cropping or whatever, that has a value, and there needs to become a time where somebody can make a decent living like they used to be able to do, milking 40 cows. Like there's no reason why somebody that's doing a great job and accumulating carbon and also providing this amazing wholesome protein off of sunlight should not be able to make a living. We got to train those people because, as we all know, the transition and succession is a huge issue. And then there's a lot of people that want to get out and they want to farm and there's no access to land. But it's there. Like the agriculture has a really critical role to play. And it's one of the things that does give me hope in spite of, all the bleakness is when I work and I get, 2,000 acres of Colorado certified and I see that their pastures are improving and I know they're, these cow-calf operations are sequestering carbon, or when I work with a small dairy that's really struggling and I help them out. To me, that's what's needed, but we just need to blow it up on a bigger and bigger scale. And that's why, so we won't have the same small group of apprentices going through the farm and garden, and it won't be as dynamic and it won't be maybe as life-changing. But maybe if that information can get out there to more people, everything's got to be fast tracked. We just got to take whatever works and just expand it, add, a multiplier to it, because we don't have a lot of time. We need to grow a lot more farmers. We need to put a lot more ground under regenerative practices. We got to take all those CAFOs and all that ground that's growing, annual corn and soybeans and turn it into pasture land and start grazing a lot of animals on it. I mean, and it has to happen like in the next decade. So how do we get there? I mean, to me, that's why agriculture and agricultural training, we're working on a grant right now for the USDA to train inspectors. Our company got a contract, so we're training organic inspectors. I'm going back and looking at, I'd never written curriculum before. I went back and all the farm and garden stuff is online and I'm like, wow, here's a whole curriculum and I can modify what we're doing. And it's like, oh, I can use their format. So to me, that's just as an example of the stuff that they're disseminating and people can use it and it's all publicly available. There's a lot of synergy going on. And I feel like, the residential thing, it's never going to be the same. But then my mother-in-law was one of those hippie students that dropped out of UCSC to go and live with Alan Chadwick, camp out at the Up Garden. Those are her memories of the farm and garden. And, then, she had my wife and I met Angela and we're like, oh my gosh, there's this connection. But it's change happens. It sucks. I'm feeling really old sometimes. I miss the 20th century, but at the same time, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. And, you go to ag conferences and you talk with people and it's everybody's yeah, succession. Yeah. How do we, multipliers or incubator farms and all this stuff. And it's it's happening. So I don't know, that stuff gives me hope. That gives me hope. That and hugging one of my, cows and, that gives me hope. And yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, if it scales better, if it's able to disseminate, as you said, to get more out there, I mean, we all want to see that. So
yeah,
those places are the anchor points of the civilization we want and need, and we don't have enough of them by a long shot.
We need the dandelion model for right now. Maybe that, that disseminating, getting the seeds spreading far and wide, lots of little seeds, will get us to a point where more lives can be like what we were experiencing at the farm,
If I could, I might jump in and I was glad to hear Garth talking about, and everyone seems to be touching a little bit on the idea that, who's seen the movie Don't Look Up? Yeah. I mean, doesn't it feel like we're in this moment where, don't look up. Yeah, I mean, I think the issues with climate change are going to be there for children, our grandchildren, and beyond. And yeah, the feedback loops and all the associated are kind of serious. But yeah, carbon sequestration in, you know, the role that agriculture and horticulture. I don't have a lot of expertise in that arena. I've been interested in energy conservation and how it applies to residential buildings primarily. And I do feel like, yeah, it is kind of a, like Garth is suggesting, it's kind of a all hands on deck moment. We really need to figure out how to address this. For those that haven't seen the film, yeah, it's a comet, you know, I mean, a comet, a massive comet. Anyway, so I don't want to get too preachy here, but just agreeing with Garth and everybody that we know some things about a little bit about the carbon cycle, how it applies in the realm of agriculture. You know, so anyway, I do live in Bellingham, and we're having a pretty decent weather day today, but yeah, we've had some crazy weather, as you know, around the world. I think we've all experienced some things like oh, this is Katie, my wife.
Hi, Katie.
Hi, Katie. Anyway, she what do I want to say?
Just keep talking. I just wanted to say hello. Hello, everyone. I've heard so much about you.
Hi, Katie. Yeah, for those that don't know, we were married in 2008, I think it was, and my son's now 27, going on 28, and he's he lives here in Bellingham as well, yeah, he is a graduate of Western computer science program, and anyway, the next generation will probably have to deal with some of these things that we've been discussing, and I think, yeah, there's just a lot. It's been a hell of a couple years, right? And we're all going through various grief and I sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit, but I just had to get this memory off my mind a little bit. Dorcas, do you remember going to a Guy Fawkes event at the coast? Oh, I think you're muted.
You're on mute.
We don't have Guy Fawkes in California.
Well, there was a gathering. I think Gary brought one of his carved pumpkins. Does that sound familiar, Gary?
I don't read it.
That's Halloween. Halloween, you mean? Halloween.
Yes, it was Halloween. That's what it was. It wasn't Guy Fawkes Day, but it was anyway. It was when I first learned about Guy Fawkes Day. I knew nothing of it.
Okay.
But anyway, Gary brought one of his pumpkins and stuck it on a post and lit it on fire, and I
don't even remember this.
Seared into my memory somehow. This flames leaping up on this face carved in this pumpkin. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, just memories of. What's that?
That's a great image.
It was scary. It was really scary. But thanks, Gary, for that.
I have no memory of this whatsoever. I don't know. I can't claim, you know, drugs or anything like that. It's like, I think my mind was going early or something like that.
You do remember carving pumpkins, yeah?
Oh, I do that all the time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Like
so
the
anyway,
rest of
one of
us.
those What's Dorcas, you were saying?
No, I just think like nobody does it all the time, Gary.
No, I mean, I mean, like every year.
Yeah.
Well, what I remember was it was a social gathering of Brits at the coast or the beach, and so anyway, in the tradition of burning an effigy of Guy Fawkes is what I remember. So anyway, I guess nobody else shares that that image, but
Sounds like you had a syncretistic experience. Holiday syncretism.
yeah, I think that was part of what my, and I think I'm not alone in that the shared experience, cultural experiences that we all brought to that time and place, and still continue to. I'm, you know, we're scattered across, I wouldn't say the entire globe, but
Pretty close.
Pretty close, I guess. Yeah. And so anyway, and to think that in 1989 we were hardly using the internet at all. I remember sending my first email from one of the trailers, you know, at UCSC.
I remember folks using email. That was funny, and I was like, email, yeah, I should probably think about that or something. And even I didn't do much.
I think it was Garth and Eric were the
Eric,
ones who were
because his
using
mum
it.
works.
Yeah.
His mum's working.
I used it.
Yes. And so
With the
he
old,
could
you
get
had to actually tell what the address was, like ucsc.edu, bang, berkeley.edu, bang, read.edu. You had to tell the email what route to take. And this was their, you know, and I only got into it because I had friends at Reed who were, you know, into computers. And so I was like writing to a few, you know, friends up there. But it was, yeah, it was totally like all Unix, all text, all, you know, it's just strings and strings of emails. Yeah, it was different.
Can you imagine doing what we're doing right now? I mean, it's almost, you know.
Yeah, you could take your phone at different parts of the farm and pull it up and locate people and be like, oh, they're in the up garden. If we all had the locators on.
And I think it would have been very bad news for the apprentices if people could figure out where we were all the time. Or what we were doing, etc., etc.
Yeah, I suppose there are times when we long to disappear, you know, outside of the internet.
Absolutely.
Katie was watching a little video piece on Facebook, I think it was, of some teens, elder teens using a dial phone, and it's pretty comedic. You know, they're trying to figure out how to use the phone, you know,
I've seen that, yeah.
dial phone, and they're just puzzled by it. Of course, they don't pick up the receiver to hear what it, you know, to hear it make it sound. You guys remember using those? Yeah. Anyway.
We have to sign
With
off.
that age.
Bye-bye, we gotta sign off.
Okay.
So great to
Bye.
see you.
Yeah, we have to go
Great.
too.
Thank you.
Keep up the good
Goodbye.
work.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, all you lovely, lovely people.
Goodbye.
Bye.
So speaking of memories, I was explaining to our intern this year who was born in '96. I'm like, explaining what Zoom meeting I have on a Sunday morning. And she was like, oh, wasn't that the year of the earthquake? You know? And I said, yeah,
Yes.
Shake and Rake 89. And I remember she's like, oh, what were you doing? And I was like, oh, I was with this woman Dorcas, and we were cleaning potatoes in the
We were in a
white
barn. Yes, we were in a barn.
And then I remember, so we get out and everything shakes and everything's crazy. And that was pretty okay, you know. The kitchen was a little bit messed up. And we get in there and Gary's cooking, and, you know, a bunch of stuff had fallen off the shelves, and he had to sweep it up. But, you know, dinner was a little bit late, and somebody was giving, I don't remember whether it was, someone was giving Gary
Every mason jar was on the farm center floor.
Yeah, but Gary still got lasagna out like maybe a couple of hours late. And someone was like, hey, Gary, why is dinner late? And he's like, hey, man, I just had an earthquake, okay? But I remember afterwards, we're eating hot lasagna. We're sitting on the porch drinking homebrew and watching all these fires go up around Santa Cruz. And, you know, Kurt and I were like, wow, this is that's really, wow, that's rough. Wow, there's another one over there. I'm feeling like so smug. We're like, here we have hot lasagna and cold brew, and it's like, wow, okay, this is the way to survive a disaster.
That was a cart day.
Yeah,
I was running cart that day.
Whoa.
It was a very, very
Crazy.
weird day. Yeah. I remember sorting spuds in the barn and we couldn't open the door.
I know. We're trying
The whole thing was rocking and we couldn't slide the door open because everything was out of whack. And then we went out and all the trees were going like this. You think, oh my God, what is this? It was amazing.
I do remember watching the farm center move. So Gary's inside and I'm on the, which side of the building is it? Where do people remember where the batteries were for the solar electric that was on the roof?
Yeah.
So I was checking a level on the batteries or something. I was doing some battery maintenance stuff. And so, the deck that wraps around the building is at, roughly chin height or so, and at least in that location. And I thought, just in that split second, we all had those moments where we're thinking, who is doing this? Like who is doing this? Who is jumping up and down on the deck? And
well,
then
I ran out to the deck and I kind of surfed it. I mean, I was spread eagle on the deck, just kind of riding it.
Yeah, and I had stepped back to look at it and I couldn't believe what was happening to this building. I definitely had the thought that it was going to collapse.
Yeah,
I
that's
didn't
what I was
realize how
worried
serious it was until the aftershocks, because I was outside when it happened and was watching the dump farm truck bouncing around and watching poles go like this, which was crazy. But then the first aftershock when I was inside and I was like, holy crap. And it was like a 5 something, not like the original one. I was like, man, the people who were inside the original, that must have been so scary because, it was just different when you're standing on open ground.
Yeah, well, we were in the cabin next to the farm centre, Gary and Frank, and there were 60 aftershocks over 4 in the first 24 hours. And my view is of Loma Prieta. That's my view from the window, And it was, and the glass would all rattle. And you think, well, do I get out of bed? No, I don't think I would. And of course, the thing had been there since the 60s, and the whole thing just moved a bit, and the glass didn't fall out. I don't know how. But, it was shit because all the people who were in brick buildings who had chimneys, I mean, like where Oren was, everybody was sleeping in their yards because the chimney was going to fall down or fall in or, think of all the number of buildings in Santa Cruz that came down.
That's why the bookstore was such a bad place.
There was a lot going on, and on campus, I suppose they had the generators and stuff, and it was very weird. It was very surreal because we were, we had nothing, but in the end, we had nothing to break either. We still had a hot shower, and we still had water, which they did. Town didn't have gas, didn't have anything.
Right.
When I got to Japan and was getting the shocks all the time, and there were some big ones, it was like, okay, I know what this is like, but.
Wow.
Yeah, I camped outside for a week because the aftershocks were so strong, and I was on my deck when it happened, and I could hear this wave coming over, like a tidal wave coming over the land. And it culminated, under me, and everything inside the house started shaking. And I remember running, and I was running off the deck, and my legs were just doing this weird thing where I wasn't getting anywhere, and then huge tree limbs were coming down. It was wild. So you guys were first years and during that.
Well, we were just the first years had just left, hadn't they? Because it was October.
Yeah, it was October.
The first years left, we were second years, and so we had just moved out of our tents into whatever, the barn, or I was next to the farm centre with Frank and Gary. Frank put up partition walling, so we had like 3 little rooms. And
those were nice.
They were, and everybody else was in the barn, I guess.
Yep.
Well, yep. Better and Ken were in town, weren't you? Are they gone?
No, they were in town, and I remember going by. Like maybe it's me and Kurt or me and David. We rode by, and Betta's outside again, outside, everybody's camped outside, and she had her bicycle helmet on. It was like, 10 o'clock at night, and she was so freaked out. She still had her bicycle helmet on. She's sitting in a lawn chair in her front yard with her bike helmet on.
No, we were all out. We would all moved into our, out of our tents, and then within a couple of days we had absolutely torrential rain. So everybody moved. People in town were out of their houses, and it pissed down. Beginning of October, I had a huge tent. I'm sure you remember I had a huge tent, and I remember going down with, I don't know, it was Eric. Well, we went down Highway 1 to Watsonville, because Watsonville was much worse than Santa Cruz, but of course it wasn't on the news because it was Watsonville. And so I took my tent and my stuff, because I didn't, you don't need it anymore, do you? I remember going down, and, you just had no idea how bad it was until you went down to Watsonville. It was serious. The whole town was just flattened. It was astonishing. And Highway 1, we could get down Highway 1, but it was just, all you heard about was San Francisco and the cyberstructure. That's a big deal. Really bad things happen, but of course it was much more about San Francisco. It wasn't about Santa Cruz, and it certainly wasn't about Watsonville, because that was just Mexicans, wasn't it? It was very interesting reporting, and for once you actually kind of had a little sense that it wasn't quite real.
Yeah.
Nobody really knew what was going on because they only heard about something in San Francisco. And
I know people were always like, were you nearby? I'm like, I was in the center of it. We just didn't have a highway collapse.
No, we were very fortunate to be outside and in buildings that didn't fall apart. And we just couldn't understand why all the food banks didn't want all our squash and our other vegetables that we had too much of. We were trying to take all the stuff to town, and nobody wanted the stuff that we had. That I do remember too.
I miss trading for PCC cookies, though.
Yes.
Such great local barter. Nothing like that. Cookies for broccoli works every time.
In our salmonella outbreak during the middle of our
yes.
program.
You were, I think, you were at the end of one spectrum, weren't you?
You were hospitalized.
Yeah, that was intense. I mean, it's a big memory for me.
Well,
Tested
Norman,
positive, no symptoms, but
wasn't Norman ill as well? Wasn't he in hospital? Who else? It wasn't just you, was it, Neil? There was somebody else. You were, Diane, were you?
yeah. No, I remember Neil was particularly. Oh, I felt so bad for you. I really did. You just got it. You really got hit.
It was awful. Oh my God. Yeah.
Well, they were trying to end the program then, weren't they? It's like, we can't
close.
have this. We can't have this on our land. We can't have
They've been
this.
trying to end the program since it was started. They were trying to end it when I was there. I mean, when the tent cabins happened, that was a major coup to actually say,
But,
hey, this is more
we
permanent.
can't have fridges. We can't have fridges down in the agroecology offices. They've got to be fridges here. They've got to be. You can't dry your dishes outside in the air anymore. You can't do this. You can't do that. You've got to have proper work surfaces. Got to clear out under the farm centre. Garth was getting into that about clearing out underneath the farm centre all the crap we had under there. Oh yes. It just like all had to be tidied up and made kind of. Oh, I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But if it wasn't for Graydon and people like that, the thing would have just come to a halt, because unless they got it sorted very, very quickly, we would have had to go home, basically.
Yeah.
Well, I did make one of it when I was making the video.
I remember,
there was a last video that I did, a whole VHS tape, and a lot of it was of the meeting between Steve, whatever his name, Steve Gleason, Orrin, and probably I imagine Jim Nelson was there and a few other people from higher ups. And anyway, I got and I was taking pictures of each person as they would talk, and then I would kind of go back and take reactions. And there was so much negativity in that. I purposely left that whole thing out. Orrin's face, if you saw his face, he was going to kill Steve Gleason.
He was always going to kill
in his eyes. He was like, it was just like, whoa. And so I purposely just left that whole thing out, and didn't want any.
A side you'd never seen to Oren, I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's amazing.
Wow. Wow.
That
Orin
was
is
on all the time. That was constant.
interesting
Well,
thing
it
with
was his
Orin.
constant
That-
battle with Steve Gleason trying to organise him and getting him to fit the system, and Oren wasn't having it.
Yeah,
I remember Oren
right.
saying,
Oh, I mean, it
if you,
was
if you
good.
need to write
I
it in a
wasn't
diary, if you
yeah, I
need to
wasn't
write it in a
faulting
diary, you're
Oren.
too busy, he would say. If you like, you have to write it down what you're doing when you're doing it, you're too busy. I remember that thing. I think that's an interesting way of looking. So you never would write anything down when it was happening, because if you had to write it down and couldn't just remember it, he was too busy. So, and I know that isn't how he operates really, but that was, the campus was just trying to push him into this little hole all the time, making him fit something which he never was going to.
It's always like,
And the Up Garden that's still going strong in terms of all that it was and
I
more
think
and more
so.
stuff.
I would say, and then some, judging by the, this
Must
thing which
be
I can't.
amazing.
Please
Well, the
send me
last
that
time we were up
or
there,
an
it
email,
definitely
because
wasn't
it's
quite
all
the
fruit
same.
and roses and stuff. Yes.
Wow.
I feel like it had shown some wear. Last time, what was that? That was the 2019 fall reunion up there. There was definitely some rundown spots and a greenhouse and everything, but it was otherwise still going.
Part of it also is, I'm not sure, it was sometime in the 90s maybe, that Oren decided to not make an orchard, but start growing apple trees as if they were in garden plants. I mean,
Well, the whole
he was
espalier
doing
thing,
the
yeah.
intensively planted apple trees. So he started planting the apple trees like at 12-foot spacings, something like that.
huh?
Those were not the espalier ones, right? Or,
No, I'm talking about full-grown apples.
Oh, okay.
So some of them, yeah, they were like 12 to 15 feet apart.
Huh?
And that was
a micro orchard.
I didn't really, other than like, oh well, you're trying to get more in a smaller space, I didn't understand how that worked as far as like disease and lack of circulation and that sort of thing, but I just didn't really. And of course, to say nothing of cultivation and keeping weeds out.
So how are they? Has anyone seen like the results? What do they look like?
Well, they've been like that ever since that time. He's if anything, he's planted. Well, he's definitely planted more. But
so did it work, or did did you?
It was more production probably, because there were more trees. But I'm not sure at a certain point. I'm not sure of.
There's sort of a labor
it
force
does work.
issue too.
Well, it's the standard though. I mean, more and more plantings. In some ways, if you're preparing people for commercial organic orcharding, like everything's going to high density plantings. So if you look at like Fuji's or in Yakima Valley in Washington or in Chile, it's all high density planting. So honestly, what he was doing is not that different from what I'm seeing in commercial organic apple orchards. It's all high density. It's not M9s, but it's similarly dwarfed, like really dwarfing rootstock, and it's little trees. So in some ways, that kind of technology and the pruning techniques, pest control is easier because you get better spray applications and whatnot. I mean, it's definitely different. It's not the same beautiful sculpted apple tree. Well, it's different sculpting. It's a high density sculpting, and you're doing more summer pruning, and it's a lot more intensive. But yeah, I mean, it definitely works. It's working all over the world.
Oh, cool.
I think with them, it's a typical seasonal labor force issue, and who do you have to do the work, the times that it needs to be done. So I know that's always been a challenge there.
Well, and I think for Oren, he just got bored with he wanted to do something a little different. And so, he'd been doing perennial flowers and vegetables for forever, and he just wanted to do a lot of fruit trees. So I'm going to move to another spot where I have, I'm going to go back onto off photo where I hopefully don't lose you all so much. So I'll go on mute and do that.
Another comment about change
not
in
leaving.
agriculture and resources. So this year, it was such a great experience for me. I grew 5 cannabis plants, and YouTube has the most amazing tutorials. I mean, it's basically called, amateur, specialists. I mean, there are like, there's so much really smart people growing cannabis and then willing to share with you everything that they know about growing. I mean, it was such a cool experience to kind of, for me, to kind of turn to a different way of learning. We all know this, how cool YouTube is, but something like cannabis was just super interesting. And it was, I mean, I learned more about botany and about a plant from YouTube, and just really chiming into it. And these people are super smart. I mean, they are super smart.
Where did you do that?
And none of them are from UCSC or college. I mean, none of them are college. They're all people who just are figuring this stuff out and sharing with each other. It's a super cool resource.
It helps for there to be a business model and an economic foundation for it. I mean, if you can make money doing something, then you can actually afford to put the resources into it. And
I mean, they're people who, they're and what was so cool is that they're young people and they're smart and they're using technology really well. And, they've changed, the amateur, cannabis, not the amateur, but, we're not talking the scientists who are getting involved, but
the hippie gardener, basically, they kind of, they're like, yeah, I like dope. I'm going to grow it. It's professional.
They talk like that, but their intelligence is amazing.
Oh yeah. It's
so cool.
People who really know what they're doing. And what David is saying also is when there's a market for it, when it has become high tech because of there's a it's a big business. It's big business here in California, right? There's no denying going into a so-called, there's a place there's many places in the Bay Area like this, but there's a place in Oakland, for example, that you go into the store and this is like an Apple store. This is as chic and as clean and as to buy cannabis products. And the people who are going there are the same people who are going to Apple stores. It's
what's also curious. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, it's interesting living here in Humboldt, seeing how legalization it's crashing the market because of all these, and all the what they're calling the legacy farms are like protesting to change the structure of the taxes and the fees because they're starting to go under. The economics has, I guess, been quite wild and hard for some people. So that's been a trip to watch. But go ahead.
Yeah, Diane, I was going to say there was a piece on Marketplace Radio that was talking about the cannabis market, and if you go to a pot shop in Los Angeles area, it's there's a lot of basically the market hasn't transformed completely to a legal product. There's a significant part of the market that still is sustained in the illegal product, and part of it is cost, apparently. But it's just a puzzle because when you think about prohibition with alcohol, we don't really have an underground alcohol economy. We don't have a market for underground alcohol today, but it's
some places in the
California
South
in particular. What's that?
So some places in the South have that.
Do they?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess that.
No,
probably...
but it's just like any product that people will use no matter what you do. You just can't really ban it effectively. So there's going to be a market. Question is, how do you want to regulate that market?
Right. I guess it's probably a federal issue, isn't it? I mean, once once it becomes legal everywhere, in all 50 states, I don't know if we'll get there, but
Well,
then,
once they
then
change
that will,
the Schedule 1 classification and just, yeah, I mean, that change has to come at the federal level to make it an effective national stance and position for it. But I am amazed that it's as legal as it is in my lifetime now. I didn't expect to see that.
That's because they're making a lot of money off of it. The federal government, once they get control.
Okay.
Well, it always, I mean, it was always an economic proposition. It's just a question of who was writing the laws and making the decisions about it. And finally, enough referendum-based stuff kind of started getting changed. And yeah, I think it was like prohibition. You can't prohibit it indefinitely. You never could. It never was completely prohibited. Well, it was always prohibited, but I mean, again, if there's a true market, you can't stop it. The question is, what kind of market do you want to have and how do you want it regulated?
Well, if
Are
there's
you
a
going to
true
regulate it
market,
as
the
a business
government
or are you
stands
going to
to make
regulate
a
it for
good
law
deal, doesn't
enforcement?
The government is going to rake it in if there's a market for it, so they will allow that, won't they, in the end?
Yeah.
They'll allow anything that will make them some money. Did you see there's an email from Mary Moe saying she couldn't come after all?
Oh, I didn't see that.
I just saw that. Somebody called in sick.
I
so
was
she
just,
had to go to
yeah,
work.
I was just waiting for people to, I was just looking on Zoom because anytime someone comes in, you can admit. So
she's not coming.
if they weren't coming, then I didn't really bother reading my email.
No, but she was, but she's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do we want to still hear? There's some people who haven't checked in, I think. Is that true? I know I haven't really talked. And how about you, Gary? And
I can say something brief, but go ahead.
I have to go.
Okay.
I'm just going to thank you. It's been great to see you all.
All right, great seeing you, Neil. Thanks a lot for coming and showing up.
Yeah.
Good hearing from you.
And thanks, Gary. Thanks, Gary. Bye.
All right. You're welcome. Bye.
Well, I'll chime in with one piece of news then. We had our last reunion. When was the last Zoom thing that we did? That was
a year ago.
So in October of last year, finally, after my son did his in August, I was able to test for my 3rd degree black belt. So I am now a Sifu, which was kind of fun.
Wow.
It hurts more at this age. But I guess everything most of you are doing, you can relate. Yeah, I've been struggling with lower back stuff all last year. I mean, it was definitely harder to train, but I did manage to get through my test and not have to get any special treatment afterwards. But that was kind of a cool thing that I've been working towards for a long time.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
So Olivia, where are you living? I'm looking at your background and your blue sky. Jealous.
You're looking at the ocean. Yeah, and I just realized I walked out of my apartment and I'm like, oh, I only have 14% juice on my laptop still. So I have moved to the central coast of California, and I have successfully turned over the land in Santa Cruz that I was on, I think, right when you all were there. So that is now, my son is gardening that along with his father.
Ooh.
And my intention there was to shift the dynamic in families of having conflict over land and wanting to have land, but waiting for the person you love to die in order to get the land you love. So I've successfully turned that over to my son, and I'm looking for land here. I have a tiny backyard garden. I mean, it's in the parking lot of the apartment I'm in until I find my new home. And I'm eagerly looking forward to a place where I can garden, permaculture, food forest, and we'll be working with young people in boat building, wooden boat building, and permaculture and spiritual values and things.
Nice.
So that's what I'm up to, and I'm still doing my business on Family Lands Consulting. So I still work with clients with significant, or not even significant, family farms. I work really beautifully, successfully with one family walnut and olive family, and help them transition into the next generation. The older generation is staying in for now, and the younger people are very active, and it's going really well. So, and I did that cohort training. I'm still in that for FarmLink. So I'm really enjoying that, you know, doing that and following my heart. And if anybody's interested, there's an amazing, thank you. Yeah, thanks. They're great. Everybody likes my shoes. I wear Vibram 5 Fingers. I've been wearing these for 18
Ooh.
years. I should take stock out in the company because I've turned so many people on to it. So I'm right here on the beach now. So you can kind of see where I am, maybe. So all these people are walking by me. So I've gone from having land all of my life to being in an apartment where I can't pee outside, can't run around naked or shower outside. And I'm really looking forward to when that happens. And I'm in the process of selling land in South Carolina for conservation, the land that was in my family all of my lifetime. And successfully, as soon as I do that, I'll be finding land here. And really, you know, thriving to stay in my higher consciousness. There's so much going on, so much change, as you know, we've all been talking about. It's really critical to you know, find ways to be in unconditional love and joy and envision a future that we all want. And, you know, and there are a lot of shifts and changes and a lot of loss, you know, of things that have meant the world to us for years. So what else? Yeah, I'm staying in good health. I'm finally doing physical therapy for a motorcycle accident I had when I was 17. I'm 67. And it's very productive. I'm really loving it. So yeah, life is really, really good. And the land and farmers and all will always be important to me. And and it's wonderful. I can't see you all as well now because I'm outside with the glow of this, or the glare of the sun. But it's really wonderful to see all of you all and to remember this whole, you know, whole community that was there. And sorry that I left you sort of as you were getting going on it. But that was when my mother was dying. It was like, oh my gosh, I had to make some pretty big choices. So yeah, and I feel, you know, and I sense it with you all, it's really wonderful to hear the impact. I know that the farm and garden changed my life completely. There's no doubt about it. And I'm so grateful for that. You know, that I got to camp under the stars and got to live in the teepees when they were still there. You know, it was just a whole different era. And to, you know, we were also blessed to have that experience of being on the land and with such connection and learning where our food came from. So yeah, so if anybody wants to reach out to me individually, I'm on that email chain. So you can do that and we can talk more. And I've been able to stay on longer than I thought because the people I'm supposed to meet up with haven't called me yet. We're looking at land here. We're actually looking at buying a boat sloop area, like a boatyard, as a stepping stone to land. I know that doesn't make sense, but it's right by the water and it's incredible and just beautiful. So, all right, now it's telling me I have almost no battery. So I ran outside so I'd have more reception, but because
Olivia, where are you? You say the Central Coast. Are you San Luis Obispo? Where are you?
I'm north of there. I'm in a little tiny town called Cayucas on the way between Morro Bay and Cambria, First Castle.
Okay.
But I don't know, you know, this is where I've landed in an apartment, you know, which is just wild after 30, you know, more than 30, you know, probably like 40, 50 years on land, actually my whole life on land. And now I'm in an apartment, except for when I was in college. So it's a sweet little beach town and it's really fun. And yeah, and I'm loving my work. You know, it's been 27 years, hard to believe it, but I'm really good at it now. And I know how to come in and really work with families and help them come to collaborative, thoughtful decisions. So, yeah. So that's me. I think I'm probably going to have to go back into my apartment and plug in order to hear the rest of you all some more.
All right.
So I'll probably stop the video unless you want to see going up and down the stairs and all of that. But that's a distraction. My neighbors, I came out with you all, and there are all these guys who hang out downstairs by the saloon that's closed. And they were like, you know, they're on either side of me as I'm going through with my laptop. I'm like, I have no reception. They're like, just take your friends to the beach. So it's great.
Oh, looks like no reception there. Or less
We lost you,
reception.
Olivia, if you can hear us. Yeah.
I've got to go. I'm really sorry.
Okay.
It's been
You too.
really, really nice to see everybody, and Olivia, who, so bye Olivia when she comes back.
You have
And
all
it was
made my
great to
Sunday shift so
see
much
some of the
better.
people that we haven't seen before. That was great too. And yeah, and Kevin, well, yeah, it's lovely to see all of you again. Some
All right. Good.
But thank
good
you.
seeing
Thanks
you,
so
Dorcas.
much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'm gonna go to.
Have a good
Okay.
evening.
Out you.
Good to see everyone.
Yeah.
Good to
And you, Kurt. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Love you all.
All
Bye.
right. Take care. So anyone still here?
I'm still here for a
I'm-
few more minutes.
Okay.
I need to go, but
All right.
thank you,
No problem.
Gary, for
Sure.
doing this again. This has been really good, and yeah, it's good to see you, Kevin. It's been a long time.
Indeed.
So sounds like it's a transition everywhere. It seems like, huh? I mean, that was part of the theme that I took away from your talking today.
Definitely a big part of that for sure. But
Yeah.
I guess the further down this journey I go, I think that is life. I think when you get stuck in a spot and you just dig your heels in and you refuse to change, it's, you know, being stuck is not a good place. And you know, I've just recently, so as a point in context, I helped start a farmers market, a Sunday farmers market, about 16 years ago. And you know, it was a big deal in the Bible Belt to try to do a farmers market on a Sunday was, you know, met with a lot of resistance. And anyway, short story, it quickly became very successful, and it's, I think, to this day the best or one of the best markets in Nebraska. And that market's going through changes now too. And I've realized recently, I just was nominated down from being the vice president. I've been on the board the entire time, and I realized that I was just kind of locked into this way of being and the way that this market was, and I was kind of unwilling to let it change. And I'm still struggling with that a little bit, but I'm slowly letting go of that and allowing it to take its own course, which feels a lot better. And you know, I think farms in transition or lives in transition, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about loss creating opportunity for newness, and that's where I prefer to spend my mental energy, is, you know, in that kind of thinking. The other is so much harder.
Yeah, well, I really admire all the work you've done to make a life in the field of agriculture. It's amazing.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And yeah, well, hopefully it won't be the last time we communicate, but yeah. Well, I'm gonna say goodbye too,
Okay.
but yeah, it was good to see all
Yeah,
of you. And
thanks for showing up, Kurt. And good to hear from you.
yeah, well, I don't know if anyway, I'll look for an email if you want to do this again. I think at one point, weren't you talking about maybe 6 months, but
Yeah, I'm probably going to do it about every year. I think I'll do it about
Okay.
every year.
Okay.
I think that feels just a little more doable for me.
Right. I guess
Hopefully
since
at
we all
some
have
point,
each other's
okay.
What's that?
I was gonna
since
say,
we have each
hopefully at
other's
some point-
contact information.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, we do.
Oh,
So
I was just trying to say that, hopefully at some point there'll be another, after COVID, there will be another, farm and garden reunion. I mean, I'm hoping they will organize that on a big scale. Those are always fun. And having been locked down, I'm like totally missing the opportunity to, not really locked down, but I definitely miss being able to travel and go places. So it'd be nice to go to a farm and garden reunion again in person. Hopefully they'll
yeah,
have that.
well, we
in another
let's
2
see,
years.
we only got what 7 more years. So yeah, 7 more years, and I'll do it. So
Gary, you haven't. You've been kind of
yeah.
quiet. What's your
Okay, yeah, but I'll start from the present. My present situation is I work at University of San Francisco as a gardener, and I'm just working as a gardener there. I've been working there for 2 years. Fortunately, I got in the month before the pandemic started, or before the lockdown started. For me, I was just, for the past 2 years I've been going, lockdown, what lockdown? My life hasn't changed a bit. Yes, I'm totally boosted, and I pay attention to the news, and I wear my mask and all that. But I've been going to work every day, and I go into San Francisco 5 days a week, and not a lot has changed, especially compared to all the changes, mostly negative, that have happened to a lot of people. So I count myself pretty blessed because of that. But, and most recently, this is kind of rumor, but a supervisor and foreman at the current job I'm at, they're both, like they're talking about retiring in about 3 years, and they're actually both family, so they probably will retire around the same time. And there's rumor, supervisor was saying a few weeks ago, he was saying, he was telling me, oh, you're going to be the next supervisor. And I was just laughing at him. It's just whatever. And then I heard it again from him. And then I've heard several people repeat that. So I might actually be running the department at the University of San Francisco. It's a possibility. It's not a probability. It might happen. And the only reason I would want to do that is like to get my wage up for a bit, mainly for long term, for getting my Social Security up, just for retirement, just make retirement easier and possibly quicker. In 2000, actually, last year in June, my mom died, and so it was kind of, it was expected. She was in hospice for about 3 months, and she was ready to go. So that was hard, but it was a good funeral and everything. It had to be a good transition, and so then as far as all the basically her money that I had been managing for the past about 20 years, well, kind of be a financial planner, a lot of that got, I inherited that. So it's not a lot, especially for California, but it's, by the time I retire, I'll be able to buy a house, in cash. So And, you know, it's possible that I might choose to go to another state. I've been looking at North Carolina, which I would like to turn blue instead of purple. And so, you know, that's the thing with that. And then most recently, I started dating a woman in November, and after that date, I took I had in my phone, I had meet Christina at Pete's, and I changed that to repeat every year anniversary with meeting Christina. That was the same week. So that's how sure that I was, and I'm more sure of it even now as I've been. And she lives over in Concord, has a house over in Concord, and she's, of all things, a dog walker, but she's very, very intelligent, for what it's worth, college educated, but she's just political science. In Concord, for those of you who don't know, the Bay Area, Concord is kind of somewhat Trumpy. You know, it's kind of has a tendency to be conservative, and so I anytime I was on the dating sites and I saw someone from Concord, I was always wondering, you know, like how, you know, if our values would match. And she and I are right in line as far as that goes, and she's very supportive of you know, my love of hiking and gardening, and I'm not sure she's not going to participate in like backpacking or that sort of thing. And there's some things that she's different, but she's very supportive of the things that are really important to me. So anyway, that's kind of been my life recently. So
are you still running?
No, I stopped running in 2015. I started a full-time job at a landscaper as a landscape foreman, and I had been working at REI, and I started this full-time job, and the self-induced stress, not anything that happened on the job, not any injury, but the self-induced stress of being in charge and, you know, wanting to do a good job and everything, that's really what precipitated the long-term injury, or the long-term injury of running, of pounding, of doing, you know, like 7 marathons and whatever, 5 half marathons and all 10Ks and everything, and just running in general outside of that, training for probably about 20 marathons, you know, but not running that many. So that, and then construction, you know, putting, you know, 2x4s on, too many 2x4s on my shoulder and that sort of thing. So all of that kind of did in my, I guess it was like L5 or something like that, and gave me a herniated disc, and it was the most intense pain I'd ever had. And I was out of work for 2 weeks, or two months, and gradually went back into doing it as in that job, the labor foreman job. And I tried about a year after the injury, I tried going back into running, but I ran like a half a mile and I was starting to feel, you know, the pain in my leg, sciatic pain. And and any time that I've tried again, you know, it's not as much an issue of my wit. I'm more winded, of course, but it's mainly just the impact on the basically inflammation of that disc and causing the sciatic pain and various other, you know, back and neuropathy in my feet and that sort of thing. So I've stopped running, and I'm hiking now more than I've ever done in my life. So I try to put in, you know, a 8 to 14 mile hike every weekend. It varies, but
That's a big amount.
and trying to do as much hills as I can so I get the cardio that I don't have with running. So all things considered, I have pretty good health, even though I have epilepsy, which is totally controlled, and I have a autoimmune disease called myasthenia gravis. So I'm immune compromised part of the time. Part of the time I have a super immune system, which sounds weird, but like when I worked at REI, when I first got this disease, I would go to bed at night and I have full blown cold. I have a snot coming out of my mouth, achy, you know, headachy. You know, this was a cold that was going to last several days or something, maybe even a week, flu cold. I'd wake up in the morning, I was like, we're going out for a 6-mile run. Because my immune system was so crazy that it was killing off everything within 10 hours or 8 hours. And I haven't had a lot of that sort of thing happening anymore, but I haven't had any obvious signs of immune compromising happening. I don't get sick or easier. I haven't got COVID. Of course, I do the sensible things like get your boosters and all that sort of thing. But yeah. So it's going pretty well.
Right.
Are you in the Bay Area, Gary? I missed that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm in Martinez.
Okay. Well,
So yeah, I'm just in an apartment in Martinez, and I've been here for, I guess, going on 4 years now.
Well, if you make it down this way hiking, let me know.
All right.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know, there's a possibility I might be coming down Santa Barbara way sometime. And if I'm heading down that way, it would probably be in spring.
Let me know. I'm
I'll
not
let you
too
know.
far off of 101, but I'm really worth a detour. It's just so beautiful here. It's a great hiking areas.
Oh, okay, great. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the offer.
Mm-hmm. That goes to any of y'all if you're this way, but I know the rest of you are a little further away. Garth, where are you?
So I'm actually in Paulsbo, Washington right now.
Okay.
I graduated, so yeah, left the farm, got an ag degree from Cornell. And most other people on the call have heard this before, got an ag degree from Cornell, went and lived on an intentional community, sort of intentional community for 20 odd years in the Coast Range of Oregon, left there at various times to go manage a farm, an herb farm in Portland, came back. We were going to market garden, did a lot of market gardening. That didn't really pay the bills. Ended up getting into organic inspecting, which has paid the bills mostly since '96. Continued to manage 17 acres down there on that community, which has an acre of blueberries. And then I have a herd of cattle. We currently have 7 head. We do like cow-calf operation and a few hogs. And actually, at the moment, we're going back and forth because my mom passed away in 2017 and we inherited some money and we bought a house up here in Paulsbo, Washington to be closer to my in-laws, and also because the rural school that we were at was terrible for our daughter who's now 14. So I actually split my time between Paulsbo, Washington and outside of Corvallis, Oregon. So we're there in the summers, have blueberries, like an acre of blueberries, about 25, 30 fruit trees, and then a bunch of pasture, and we lease some other pasture. So I'm actually in this crazy situation where we move animals back and forth over the, twice a year. We haul our cows down to Oregon and we bring them back up in the fall. So doing that, yeah, trying to live in 2 pieces of land and parent and do too many different farming and consulting work. So it's kind of crazy making, but yeah, looking to scale back. Like a lot of people on the call, I think I may get rid of one of those enterprises. Probably the hogs would be the easiest with feed prices the way they are, and just go back to like raising dairy heifers for the homesteading market. So I can have, if I have a cow that calves out, especially with sex semen, I can have a dairy heifer and sell her, for $3,000 if she's halter trained into the homesteading market. So I may just do that and cut back to just like a couple of cows and just do that. I don't know. We'll see, but we're definitely looking at, with COVID, it was hard to get farm help and stress with the intentional community, which I'd love to talk to you about at some point. But yeah, like older landowners with different visions and how to get out of that without too much conflict. And anyway, yeah, like everybody else, I'm like, hey, my kid's going to graduate in 2 years from high school. Do I still want to be doing this? I know I don't necessarily want to be living here, but I know I don't want to be doing like all this crazy running around trying to do multiple operations. I'd like to maybe do some travel. I don't know. I'm blessed that we have tons of work, and that business is going really well. I can always sell our meat. Finding the time to give into these various enterprises is hard, but yeah, I'm just kind of looking at what the next steps are and not really knowing and not wanting to say no to anything yet. Like giving up is really, like Kevin said, like, I mean, digging in your heels and stuff. I just like, oh, I fought so hard to come up here. I fought so hard to like give up on, just all of it. Like, it's really hard to give up. We gave up on several things. We gave up doing market garden. We gave up doing goats. It's like, it's really tough to give up on something that you've done because, well, that's what I do. Like, we always do market, I always grow a whole like high tunnel full of produce. Like, oh, I don't really need to do that anymore. So I don't know. It's changes. It's interesting to hear everybody else.
Yeah. And Gary, did you have more to share?
I actually, I was gonna say that Mary Mo wanted to come and then she was not able to, and I'm not sure what else. I think that mainly she had to work today, but she also was going, I know she was really going through a lot, that her brother just died of COVID, and he was a Trumper and never got the vaccine. And so it's, this combination of grief and anger that she has. And part of that made her not want to come at all to this, just, talking. She didn't really want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that she was going to come, but then some scheduling things at work made her not able to. Perry had also had a work. She had to work. I think she works at a art museum, and she wasn't able to come because of needing to work today on that. But this is being recorded, so for those that want it, I'm gonna send them a recording. I'll send one to Perry and Mary. So So I didn't have anything else about me.
That was my question. It wasn't about everybody else.
Yeah.
It's
I
the
just wanted to
facilitator in me. I can't help it.
I just wanted to mention those things, but I didn't really have anything else. I mean, I've been doing, I will, just because I'm here, I will show you what I've been doing art-wise, and it's also related to gardening. So this is a poster I made for myself, and it's
wow, neat.
These are I'm a printmaker now, so I do Linocut prints, and I call this series Farm Hands. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And it's just, all it is just hands harvesting produce. So, and I'm not trying to make, this isn't, I don't mean this to be like.
Uh-oh.
You got muted, Gary, somehow.
I muted myself. Sorry, I muted myself there. But I do have a website, and it's called Wildcut Prints.
Oh, cool.
So if you wildcutprints.com. And that has some of my work on there. I don't actually, I think it has all those. I've made two others. I've made a harvesting broccoli one and a harvesting apple harvesting one. And so I'm gonna be done with that with that series and go on to something else. But I think it's a lot of what I like to do is kind of the intersection of man and nature. So I have tons of photography of all my trips, and a lot of them are are agriculture based things, and I'm wanting to kind of turn some of those into prints. The high desert of Nepal, a guy out getting his oxen out and plowing a field, and just people plowing rice fields in Burma and things like that. So I some of these I don't even have on my wall. There's slides or something, but I have them all on my computer. And so I'd like to try and kind of rework those and draw them out and then turn them into a Linocut prints. So
I flashed on maybe postcards or cards, greeting cards.
Just because I've done greeting cards for other things, like with wildflowers. I do a lot of wildflowers, and I've done those, and it's just, we're no longer, very few people, unfortunately, do greeting cards anymore with the internet. And
do them all the time.
Yeah, I do. I do too. I do some. I probably don't do as much as you do, but I send some, and I have a whole bunch of my own, wildflower ones that I made. So
I have a stock of greeting cards that I had made from my art. I had 6 designs that I had printed up, and I just still, every time I move, I have like a couple of boxes still of the stock that I never was able to sell.
Yeah.
If you want
Start
some, I'll
using
send you
them and
some.
give them away. Yeah. I buy cards from Bert Brown, who was an apprentice and runs Wild Roots, and Felton, his daughter Molly does incredible art. And so I buy those and send them to people. I was just thinking it was a great way for you, Gary, to get the farmhand one out and the things that have to do with farming to get that.
Yeah, I've thought of that,
Yeah.
but I just didn't. Yeah, it just because of my one experience doing the how hard it was to try and market my wildflower photos, in spite of the fact that when I went and looked at other wildflower, that mine were actually better photos than ones that were being sold in the store. I just realized, no, I don't really want to. I don't want to do this.
Yeah, I was thinking more of your, the prints that you were showing us that you made. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I was just saying that because of my previous experience, I didn't want to do them with the Linocuts.
I get it. It's challenging. I just threw out, going back to what you were saying, Garth, and thanks for your share. That thing of like, how do you let go, and how do you let go of things that you've loved, that you've done for so long? And I just this morning, right before I got on the call, recycled like 5 boxes of business cards of my business. Now I'm still keeping my business going, but it's like so hard to let go of those. I got them 27 years ago. When I first went into business, when you had to pay a graphic artist to do it, and you had to order a bunch at once because otherwise the next printing was going to be another $1,200. Right. Whereas if you just got 5,000, it was another 100, So it's like, it's just so funny, our places of letting go. And yet to let go and create new energy, what I'm learning is I really have to do that. I've got to open the space in my life for bringing in my vision by letting go of some of these older pieces that are just bringing me, holding me. So, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. It's so sweet to see all of you all.
Yeah. Thanks.
I don't think I ever
everyone.
met you, Olivia.
I was wondering if we did, Diane. Were you an apprentice when? 88?
89, but I wasn't a second year.
Okay.
I left
Let's see. Was it the first time I remember meeting Olivia was at the solstice. We had a celebration of the solstice, and Kevin went and rototilled the field, that field right below the farm center, and we did this like Native American based kind of planting of corn in that field. It was right out in front of the farm center. And so that's in the video. So if you look at have you ever seen the video? And the video is online, Diane. I'll send you a link if you want. There's Olivia back in the day.
Nice.
Yeah, because you guys weren't actually apprentices when I was teaching there. You were, but you became second years, some of you, right? For the 89ers. Yeah.
I did, and Garth did, David.
Right. That's
Kurt.
what I think I remember. Because I left in 88 was the year my mother died. So I was teaching mid-cycle, and Lisa P. and Ann Lindsay took over my running of the garden. Or at the farm. Because I'd always told my mom I'd take care of her as she was dying, and suddenly she was. And it's like, okay. So, but it's funny because you all feel so much like family, like apprentices. And that was the year of the photo shoot with Smith and Hawkins, though, because for Kevin and Sharuth, you were in that, because I sent that to you at some point.
Yeah. And I somehow I got into it because I said, you really ought to get this picture of Dorcas, because Dorcas had this long blonde hair, and she's out, it's just like, this is, she was very photogenic. And so I just said, you ought to really get her. And they said, well, what about you? And I went, what? Why would you want to take a picture of me? So they got a picture of me and John Farrell cutting sunflowers.
I remember that.
It was on a full spread. They actually got a full spread out of it.
Right. And Sharuth was harvesting flowers. And just beautiful. She hasn't changed a lick, Kevin. You did well.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think collectively we've done well. I mean, I feel really lucky that we've stuck it out, and you know, tough times sometimes, you know, I mean, it's not easy. It's but we love each other, and we have 3 children grown that still call us. You know, we just took a family vacation to ski country in Colorado. We kind of chose the off the beaten path Leadville, which is just off the I-70 corridor, and it's a lot cheaper. We rented a Airbnb, and so basically it was us and our 2 of our boys' girlfriends and one other buddy. So yeah, I feel lucky we have kind of pulled that part off. We're together with each other, and we have kids that want to talk to us and spend time with us.
That's really amazing.
I mean, and that, you know, I've been through the "fuck you, dad" portion of that.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Oh yeah.
I have been, I've done some things that cannot be retracted that I'm not proud of, you know, and yet I've come out the other side. So I feel good about that. There was a time, I mean, just, I will tell you, there was, the divorce concept was on the table. I was looking for a move, and, you know, and that wasn't that long ago. I mean, that was what, 4 years ago. And today we're solid, you know. But we were, yeah, it was on the table for readjustment, for reevaluation.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you have to go through those growth pieces in order to come out the other side, right?
Yeah.
So how wonderful that you made it through there and found, sounds like more balance.
Yeah,
more change.
I think we're not done. You know, none of us are done. We just that's why I feel like it's just so important to continue to be open to whatever's next, and not. I mean, sometimes it's worth holding on to something. It's just this whole letting go thing. Sometimes is overrated. I mean, sometimes you should not be letting go. You know, but then other times, you know, sometimes you do. It's farming for me. I didn't think. I mean, that's all I wanted to do from the farm and garden time forward, is I wanted to grow food for people. You know, I wanted to engage in direct marketing. I wanted to, you know, that was my community action piece. You know, that wasn't, you know, I wasn't writing as many letters to senators and congressmen as maybe I could have. I wasn't, you know, that engaged in being a lobbyist or, you know, any of those wonderful things. I wasn't trying to, you know, work in the energy field and try to, you know, lobby for, you know, better policy. That was not me. It was, let's grow food for people. You know, everybody eats. Let's find common ground.
And you know what? That's you said exactly that in the interview of the video. That's what you said. Direct action is what I'm into. And you did it, and you're doing it. So
but the interesting thing about the piece, though, is that there was a point where I had become slave to it. It was hurting me. It was no longer a productive energy. It was, you know, we had gotten to a point in the farm. Well, we started into the goat dairy thing probably about, I don't know, 15, 16 years ago, 17 years. It's been a while. But the cheese, especially the goat cheese thing, it just was a tough sell from the get-go. And, you know, being direct marketing types that we were, the cheese really needed to piggyback on top of the vegetable success, because we were well known and well marketed in restaurants and retail stores and you know, for farmers markets. And the cheese really needed the veg in order to, you know, sustain itself. It wasn't a freestanding entity, and it couldn't be at that point. And so then I couldn't let go of the farm. I couldn't, of the vegetable element of the farm, because I felt like the cheese depended on it. And in some ways it did. And so that was, you know, that was a big pivotal moment for me, where, wow, everything that I wanted to do through as you said, Gary, direct action, getting in there and growing food and meeting my customers at the table, that all of a sudden was a ball and chain, and I wasn't loving it. There were some other elements in there that were indicators of the fact that things weren't going well. But then you got to take some steps and make some actions, be a little vulnerable, take a risk, throw an idea out, and next thing you know, I've got a new relationship with a young guy, Ian, 32 years old, undercapitalized, full of gumption. He'd been all over the place. He'd worked for a farmer in the Ithaca area. He'd worked with a hog farmer in Nebraska. He was the real deal. He just didn't have the resource or the access. And he was working for me. He was working for another small organic farmer, and he had his own side gig going. And it was just a perfect opportunity for him to get a leg up on pursuing his vision, and for me to, let go of something without fully letting go of it. Because we had, a pack house and an irrigation system and a handful of high tunnels and a propagation greenhouse and market vehicles and, everything you can imagine that you would need for a direct marketing operation. Just, I needed some new blood in there. And, fast forward to today, Ian's living on the farm. I've got a little studio apartment for him up above the farm store, which is adjacent to the cheese plant. It's an old corn crib and equipment shed that's been repurposed. He's got his dwelling up there. We've got a cheese plant in the back, an on-farm store in the front. And I basically handed over the whole operation. Part of the package he got was my marketing and connections, and my tractor, my high tunnels, my irrigation system. And, it was great. I feel so much more liberated today. I feel so much lighter, and I feel more like I can, go into the next steps, and whatever those are. I feel like outreach, opportunity, networking. I'm really big into networking with other small producers. That's my next thing, I think, is just, and we've done that for years, but I want to do that in a more, intentional way. And, Gary, your story about Mary and the loss of her brother. I mean, we're in red country. We're in divided territory. We have a little blue swath right there in Omaha. But basically, we are, the division that we feel nationally, it is on steroids here. And I'm sure it is everywhere. But, I think it's just all the more important. It's as important. Well, it's up there in importance with climate change. But social climate change is key.
Yeah.
I had a great conversation with my state of Nebraska dairy inspector just 3 days ago. Just happened to be in the farm store collecting a yogurt sample when I was there, and we talked first cautiously about COVID and anti-masker, anti-vaxxer versus this and that. And, ultimately by the end of it, he was in a hurry, I was in a hurry, and we both took 45 minutes to talk to each other.
Right.
So that was a cool thing. And, so I learned things like, I had mentioned something about how I've always been left to center, that I've migrated maybe a little closer to the middle ground. And he said, well, he'd always been pretty far right, but he says, I hate to, I feel like I'm in safe country here, but, Trump has pushed me closer to the center. I'm far more left leaning now than I ever have been. And, and he talked about the fact that one of his best friends, is an anti-masker for political reasons. And, how do we migrate those murky waters where people that we like
Mhm.
are making obvious decisions that are so contrary to our own. That is, so some of these small farmers that are in the area that I might like to collaborate with and coordinate with and work together on so that small business has a chance, in my country, there's a very high probability that they will not have the same political values that I do. And yet their role and their purpose in a small scale, diversified, food-centric marketplace is, it's as valuable as mine. It's as important. So how do we communicate?
I think we really are being called on in these times not to choose separation, but to choose connection and unconditional love and compassion for people who have different views than we have. And it's a daily thing because people are so divided. And, I think it's really important not to see the division, but to see the connections. That's what I'm practicing, and to be in conversation with people, about what they're thinking, what they're choosing, what they're doing. Yeah, it's a tough one. And I think that we have a political system that really wants to create separation between us all. And that as long as we keep acquiescing to that, that's what's going to happen. We're going to have that, and then we're going to have some real repercussions, So, yeah.
I think my experience in agriculture would have been extremely different if I had decided that I was only going to interface with people that were of the same mindset and whose same value systems involved, organic and biodynamic and, live farming principles and practices. We're not certified organic any longer. I buy hay from a guy that is, he's not organic. I mean, he's so I've maybe moved out of my comfort zone with wanting to do that, or even my preference zone, but I've developed a tremendously great friendship with this farmer, and I've learned things from him. His brother, I met him through University of Nebraska Extension. He's the North Central SARE coordinator. His brother, the guy that I buy hay from. So these guys are not foreigners to sustainable ag principles and practices at all. And I can have conversations with them about it without judgment in two directions. That's valuable to me. That's what I want, because it's, us and them. I don't want that.
Yeah.
And
I totally.
And it would be a lot harder. I'm telling you, it would be a lot harder. I mean, I felt like I was weird when we moved back here. Sharuth and I were weird. Like, what the hell are those people? What the hell's going on there? And it took some time before I felt like there was some credibility and some understanding. That's ebbed and flowed too, by the way. But
that's what, by the way?
Oh, ebbed and flowed. It's not like you're in and you've got credibility and you're done. You got to keep sort of supporting that credibility over time.
Right. Yeah. But once people get to know you, they stop judging you the same way. That's what I found.
Yeah, especially if you stop judging them.
Well, that makes all the difference in the world. I don't know if you've ever heard of that book, Zero Limits, by this psychologist, the Hawaiian psychologist. It's fascinating. It's the principle of Ho'oponopono, which is a Hawaiian principle of anytime you judge someone, you say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Not out loud to them, but just to yourself, because you catch the judgment. And then when you catch that judgment and do that, when you stop judging them, they stop judging you. And it's just so powerful. So I've been practicing that a lot. And I teach it with clients I work with, you know, because they're like, oh, my brother did this or my sister did this. It's like, well, okay, what's your role in this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a trap.
It is.
Stay in that forever, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I say it a lot. It's like I walk down the street and I go, oh, that person's, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. It's like, because I'll start to go, oh, they're too fat or they're too this, or look at how they're, you know, masked and they're out on the beach by themselves with nobody around. It's like, who are they masking with? You know, they're not their dog, you know. So it's just, you know, you make judgments and it's like, okay, let that go. It's not real. And it's just me, you know. So and that like energy attracts like energy. So certainly when you judge somebody, that's what you bring into your world. So
everybody has, you know, a Mary Morales and brother, you know, everybody. I mean, who doesn't?
I do. I definitely do.
I missed the story. My computer died in that moment. I was like, really? So, yeah. But I probably do.
I mean, we do. I'm pretty. I think I'm lucky, but I know there's plenty of people in my circle that are the Mary Morales's brother person for me. And yeah, what's the way through that? I have, you know, this guy that I've talked about, Ian, that has taken over the vegetable farming part of the operation for 3 years now. It's his right hand on some of the logistical ends of the farming is this young woman named Laura Waterman. And I first met Laura. Laura was, I don't know, she was probably 10 or 11 years old when she first came to my farm.
Wow.
And her father, Randy Waterman, and I and a couple of other people, we took a trip together years ago to Oklahoma to look at the Oklahoma Food Co-op model. And because we thought that we wanted to try to get something like that going in Nebraska. And so Oklahoma had really gotten some foothold and some motion, and they were getting some traction. So we went there, we flew there together, and we visited and looked at their operation and brought it back. And ultimately that led to the birth of the Nebraska Food Co-op, which has been a struggling entity ever since. It's still alive, but it's still, anyway, the point of this is that the Waterman family and many others that I had met through the Nebraska Sustainable Ag Society are all, not all, many are, you know, from the perspective of the conservative Christian right. They're homeschoolers, you know, they're big families, they're anti-vaxxers because of the mindset that, you know, let's not put these foreign things into our body. Let's build natural immunity. Maybe it's not political originally, but maybe it grew into that, maybe because of the abortion issue, maybe because of some other thing. But these are people that I've known in my experience in Nebraska. One of them is now a key player in Shadowbrook Farm because of her affiliation with Ian and his operation. And I just had to cancel a meeting that we were going to have Friday in my house in front of my computer to go over some of the logistics of this online farm store and whatnot, because she was sick and so was everybody else that was in her surrounding, and they won't call it out as COVID. They won't test, they won't mask. And it's just like, what do? Just, I mean, do I just expel her from my circle? I choose not to.
Yeah. You don't. You just let everybody have free will choice. on how they're going to be. And
That's
yeah.
meeting in person is what we did. It's hard. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like what?
Pardon me, all. I need to cut out, and I really appreciate everyone coming and good conversation and hearing about everyone and what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I wish I could let you continue on, but when I cut out, that's it. So.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Gary, for doing this.
Well, thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And your persistence in sending it to me, because I was always like, I can't do it. But this time I was like, let's see how everybody is. So good to see you all, and thank you.
Great seeing you all.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, and anybody come this area, just let me know.
All right.
All right.
Thanks all. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
good
Bye.
rest of your day. Bye.
Well.
Bye.